This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Public Meeting Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 7, 2026, and was posted on Borough Hall website at www.hpborough.com and on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my right and left of Council Chambers. No formal action will be taken tonight. It's a work session. And Naraya, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I say something?
Uh-huh.
I just have to share the story. I told my son that we do the pledge at the beginning, and I said, if you ever come to a meeting, the mayor's gonna call on you. Whoever's
like,
the newbie always gets called on.
Like,
And he was like, I'm ready, I got it.
Are we still sorry?
Huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I don't know if they do it every day or not. I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
But he knew
But
it.
he
Like
would
the back of
do
his
it.
hand.
Oh, okay.
So
He'd
I'm
do
sure
it.
they do it enough.
Yeah.
They probably do it in the morning.
Aw.
Roll call.
Mayor Foster.
Yes.
Councilmember George.
Yes.
Councilmember Hale. Councilmember Hirsch.
Yes.
Council President Kim Cho-Han.
Here.
Councilmember Pistonik.
Here.
Councilmember Vargas.
Here.
Borough Attorney Renaud.
Here.
Borough Administrator Rivera.
Here,
Councilman Hale's in the parking lot.
great, great.
No formal action will be taken because this is a work session. And first item for discussion is our 2026 municipal and utility budget.
Sorry, Lee.
Yeah.
All right,
All right, thank you.
7:03.
All right, thanks, Mayor. And as you can see, we have our CFO, Naraya Champion here as well. So hopefully, I don't know, have you guys met yet? Oh, there we go. So thank you. I know, sent a lot of materials for you to review. I'm going to try to walk you through what I think the highlights are, but I'm open to hearing everybody's questions. Our hope, just to put it in some context, is to introduce next week. So if we're close, if we're, if there's some tweaking to do between now and then, that's absolutely fine. But if I have to go back to the drawing board, we'll have to postpone introduction, which I really hope we don't have to do.
And I'm really hoping that you're all ready to hit the schedules and have notes.
Exactly. So, but I thought I'd just kick off by giving some highlights from the budget that proposal I presented. I did print off, I didn't give you every individual departmental sheet because that's a lot of trees, but I did give everybody a copy of the summary of, the tax calculations, revenues, appropriations, and I did a new table this year for boards and commissions, just so you guys could see where the asks came in, where I may or may not have recommended an adjustment, and just to make sure we're all on the same page, because I know a number of you have gotten questions from your commissions or committees about what can I expect. So I'm hoping we can kind of come to some understanding on that as well. But I also provided you a copy of the memo on the draft materials, because I really, as I was writing it, I think it summarizes pretty well the way I'm looking at this budget. Just in a nutshell, if you look at on the appropriations sheet, the last page kind of has the tally. And if you net out grants, which I do because it skews the look, because for example, if you include grants, total appropriations are a 0% increase. Well, that's because some of our grants, we had some big grants last year and we didn't get those yet this year. So that skews the outlook. So total less grant appropriations, we're at 3% with the budget that you've seen. And then when I think about that, that's about $600,000. And so, where did most of that come from? And I just took a look at the summary appropriations and said, let's look at the biggest numbers in the list. And the biggest numbers in the list, the two top account for 300,000 of that increase. And the top being a mandatory payment to the police and firemen's retirement system. They do those calculations annually and give us a bill. And that is our bill. And it is up $189,000. The next highest is police salary and wages, 123,000. And just be clear, that's only, and I say that not lightly, but that is 3% over prior year, which is actually pretty good given they have a very rich step increase, but we've got a little more diversity in the tenure of our various officers. So that's, we have some younger officers, so they're not paying everybody at top step, for example, on the guide. But if you just look at those two items, those are about half of that additional, of that 3% over last year. All right. So, but I'll go into a little more, but, and then when I tried to think about if I was you, I always try to put myself in your shoes. Well, what do we have some say in, because a lot of the salaries and wages in every single line of this budget are people who work here now or positions that are already existing. We have one vacancy in DPW that we've been trying to fill. So that's the only open position that's reflected, and their current salaries. So that's who we are, salaries and wages wise, with the exception of we have a proposal to add a full-time firefighter to our roster at the fire department, along with an additional Monday through Friday shift for a part-time person. It's intended to, obviously, first and foremost, enhance safety. It's also to give us more stable. We've had a lot of overtime in part because we do rely on part-time staff members who work in other towns where they can get stuck because they work oftentimes as firefighters in those towns. So they can get stuck there. So by having an additional full-time person, we'll have Monday through Friday, 2 people on that are paid full-time Highland Parkers with a third that's a part-time person. But if the part-time person has to call out and we can't fill it, we don't have to go into overtime mode. So I think it really helps on 2 fronts. First and foremost, safety, but it will help arrest our overtime costs. So with the proposal that 80,000, that is about what we increased, I did reduce overtime. So if we chose not to go that route, it's not like it's a savings of 80,000. I'm going to have to put in probably another 30 or 40 in overtime. So just be aware of that as you weigh these options. I'm just going to hit the highlights and then we can get into any specifics anybody wants to go into. Of course, an important number is basically the municipal levy for the property tax. Even though the appropriations are up 3, the levy is up 4.1. And the best way, and we were talking a little beforehand with a couple of people, I can describe it is we've got flat and decreasing revenues with some limited exceptions. So for example, fortunately, we were informed that state aid is flat this year, but we've been flat and or decreasing for a while. We've been flat, I think, at least the last 3 years. I didn't go back to look. So our costs have not been flat year over year. So that's a challenge, but we can talk a little more about revenues in a minute, but just be aware, our revenues are about within 60,000-ish of where they were last year. I can't remember if it's up or down, I think it's down. But they're not keeping pace. And to me, this renewed my personal commitment to getting our redevelopment projects and really getting that infusion of investment. That is where our time is well spent, because if we did have some of these projects online, not only would it bring in construction fees, all that stuff, but we have that, even if it's a financial agreement and it's payment with the taxes, those are revenues that are non-existent now that we would be able to have to help support this budget. A couple other things I just want to hit on that usually come up. The library budget that you see here between salaries and other expenses is a 2% increase over last, which is what I think is a reasonable. The original ask was 4, and I said I think you can make 2 work. So that's what you see here. They've been a great partner. They've taken on a lot more expenses, for instance, custodial. That's something they now budget for that previously Public Works tried to fill in those gaps. So I've appreciated it's been a really collaborative environment working with them. But that's what's in this budget is a 2% increase. The mandatory is about there's always the statutory. This came up earlier. The statutory number is, just so you know, $754,928. So everything we do above that amount is at our discretion. However, if we were to slash them down to that number, we would not have a functioning library, the way we want it to be functioning. So I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just trying to give you an idea of where your discretion really lies with respect to the library budget.
And we're one of the heaviest used library in the county.
Is that true? That's interesting. I'm not surprised. In fact, I was told they have to buy more chairs because they're overrun with kids doing stuff after school, which is, I was like, that's great to hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super busy.
So fire, I think I mentioned that before. So that's where that proposal comes in. And that's something we have kind of been bandying about at the Public Safety Committee for the last couple of meetings. Public Works OE is up by 53.8, and that is pretty much exclusive to tree maintenance. Between tree maintenance, meaning rich tree service come in, pruning, tree removals that are needed. That year 2026, the contract is for 160,000. We never have budgeted the full amount of the contract, but that means we're never catching up with our maintenance. I'm just being real. And in addition,
and as we can see from last night, we really need to
well,
catch
and
up
I
with our
think
tree
we
maintenance.
were lucky. I mean, we have been doing well, but there's so much to do with the old trees. There just is. So my recommendation is we budget to the 160. The other amount that is in that number is the cost of the tree plantings, because as you all know, we have a tree replacement fund. But that money has been going down, down, down. There's a big infusion with some of the larger development projects in town, Highland Cliffs, the stuff on Cleveland, what have you. Well, those opportunities, there's the funds getting dribs and drabs now as people get permits to do stuff. So rather than wait till it was at zero, what this budget shows is we're splitting it with the fund this year. And that still leaves the fund with about, I want to say $20,000, but I don't know. I didn't ask Naraya to check that before the meeting. So we're slowly, I wanted to absorb some of those costs into our budget. And lastly, it's our licensed tree expert who we've been working with, and that's about $10,000. But we're trying to get him into town 2 times a month for half days because of that maintenance work. We need him to kind of direct what needs to happen. So that's the main change there. Tom, you got it. Tom Patel. And then motor pool's up mainly because parts and supplies are up and our fleet is old. So we're going to be getting some new garbage trucks and things, and that'll hopefully help arrest that. But that's the reality. That is based on last year's experience. We do have a new mechanic who Mike is very enthusiastic about. I haven't met him yet, but he's very knowledgeable about our garbage trucks. And the hope is that we'll be able to do a little more in-house with some investment in some materials, some scanning, computer scanning equipment and stuff for the vehicles. That's something that Mike shared with me recently. I'm very excited about.
Sherry,
yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but I want to. I don't really
You're in
hate to
charge.
interrupt, I really want to interrupt because
Honest statement I've ever heard.
I hate to do it, but I'm gonna do it.
Because I am really, especially after last night and seeing all those trees coming down, and we're a town that love our older, mature trees. And I think that we need to take a closer look at the budget for this, because we're going to start losing more trees and more trees and more trees. And if we're proactive, then, we won't have what happened in Metuchen where people don't have homes to live in tonight because the trees just came down and just
Crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. And they're showing all over the state where all these trees are just collapsing on these homes that, yes, we love our trees, but we also have to be good stewards to our homes and make sure that we have a place to live and make sure that the mature trees that we have, when we get experts to come out and take a look at them, that we're really doing the best thing for our town and for our resident.
And I don't want to make it sound like we haven't been doing a good.
No, I'm not trying to make it, but I know how much we love our trees here in town.
Every year, I'll tell you this, that I get we get close to the end of our contract amount or our budgeted amount, and we literally have to stop and we have to save because we got to make sure if in an emergency, we've got what we need. So
Exactly.
there's probably even more work to do than 160,000, but that I think is a much more healthy amount. It's based on the actual quantities that we specified in our contract with Rich Tree Service. So that'll kind of liberate Public Works to bring them in a little more frequently, and take care of also not just the emergencies and the hazards, but also get to the stump grindings.
Yes.
Get to the stick removals and other things that we sometimes leave because we want to save a pot for a rainy day in case a little rainy day. So I appreciate you saying that, Mayor, because I agree. And that's why, I'll be honest, I put that money in. It wasn't coming from Public Works. When I looked at the numbers and I said, I just think we've been lucky. We need to think about it. So this is my pitch to you. And then the last kind of discretionary item, it piggybacks on a conversation we all had last year about, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have an accelerated tax sale? The tax office would love it. I would love it. And anybody who's had to take the call from the older woman who's never missed a tax payment in their entire life until the fourth quarter of a year, and they're in tax sale because they were in the hospital. I mean, you can just hear every story and it makes your heart break.
Yes.
Literally that story's happened multiple times. So we would like to get there, but I'll be honest, when I plugged in the $100,000 that Nerea originally had in there, I couldn't present this budget to you. I was like, you're not gonna want it. You may change your mind, but this budget reflects though an incremental increase. We suggested, why don't we just put an additional 25,000 so that we can ease the budget, because we have to basically have a reserve of $600,000, and we currently do a $200,000 reserve in order to support, because the way it works, we need to run our borough, and right now, if we don't collect it in the accelerated tax sale, we're running on fumes if we wait till June or whenever a non-accelerated tax sale occurs. So to make this, the reason why towns probably don't make this switch very often is it's hard to build that up. So we're going to try to choose our moments. We thought this year it'd be smaller, but if next year the budget's looking better, or we have some more surplus than we realized we had to spend, maybe we would recommend that we do a little bit more next year. But that's kind of the only other item I would put in that kind of would be nice category. I wouldn't put the trees in that category. I put this, actually, that's really the only one that's really discretionary.
Right.
Are there scripts and scrapes in this budget? Probably, but it's my advice. You don't want to cut it to the quick like that, because we use, as you know, we do budget transfers. So where we have maybe an over budget over here, we often have a shortfall in another area of the budget, and that gives us the cushion we need to close the gap. The last thing I wanted to say before I open it up and just let you guys think about it, one update I do have, the tax calc is always a very important sheet deck, because it basically indicates, and I'm gonna, of course, now I gotta find my, here we go. The first page of the packet. The one you could see, basically, I wasn't estimating us, that 4.1% increase, and I'm talking about in this column on the right here at the top, that's what the budget you've just been presented results in, the increase to the levy, okay, the amount we need to raise. I've estimated school and county here because I don't have their numbers. So county could be lower, and it frequently is, but I just went with 2%. Schools, the mayor and I were advised at our last meeting to brace for a big increase, as much as potentially 6%. So I put 4. The good news is this was before they got their state aid information. So I was talking with Denise, the administrator, and it's looking like, and I don't want to count our chickens before they're hatched because they have not introduced their budget and haven't got any approvals, that their budget is, their levy, their budget is going up. But because of the aid that they got, that revenue that I was wishing we got to kind of offset taxes, should hold their levy amount flat or less than last year. So that means that total bill increase for the average residential assessment, if that happens, goes from 550.77, which is the number I presented, to 172.46.
We would love
So that's good news. And she feels pretty confident. But so they got, I think, a 6% increase in aid. So that accounts for that kind of works. They do have some pretty large nuts to crack. We think we're crying rivers about health insurance. She was giving me a overview of that. That's her big challenge right now. So I just share that in case that colors some of your thinking, because I did not have that until a couple hours ago. So I think, and even if we want to hedge and say 2%, it's still that brings that number probably closer to a little over 300, and change. So that's kind of the high level swaths. And then I'm not going to get into boards and commissions unless you guys want to, but I know for me, it's such a minor part of the overall budget, but I know it's really important to you and your committees. So if you want to look at that chart, it's on page, right after appropriations. It's called BCCs, page 9.
Boards under commission.
My professional.
Okay, Norma's happy.
Thank you.
So what you'll see, there are a few boards that came in over prior year requests. Some of which I thought makes sense, some of which I thought, let's leave it be. Or let's bring it down, but you can go up, but maybe not as much as you think you need.
Right.
So for example, Arts Commission, they needed 300 more bucks, but they didn't come close to spending last year's.
Right.
They can make it work. And they have a fund that they can tap if they really run short. Board of Health, they just asked for the same. So I just said, okay, fine. Environmental Commission, Matt, you'll recall, they came in
With a high number.
but they wanted to buy a shipping container for storing stuff at the Meadows. And I suggested get what Sustainable did, which is a vinyl, one of those.
Yes.
So I brought that number down. Everything else was within their total normal parameters. So that they got an increase, but just not as much as they were looking for. Or they got to find grant funding or something else to kind of make that happen. Historical, I just brought it down again. They have numerous grants this year.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have their hands full, and I don't think they need extra money.
Yeah.
I think, and they've got a great. But I mean, when you look at the second page of in your email, you have their full proposal. You'll see all the things they're getting ready for this year.
Yeah.
So they've got plenty of grant funding in addition to their budget there. But there are some matching things. So I thought, okay, a little increase, but just not quite as much as you asked for. Everybody else we held flat. And then Sustainable, they budgeted a lot for a bench. So I just brought it down to what I thought was a reasonable amount. But otherwise, they've been just ramping up their programs.
They're humming.
They're humming, and
They
we
are.
just authorized that dedication by rider, so they can, if approved, they can solicit stuff. So they'll have ways they can supplement their budget over time.
And they're very excited. They will use that.
Yeah.
I guarantee we will.
So that's the boards and commissions. So I just
They
throw it
look
out
good,
there in case. I know that's, while none of those will significantly impact that number on the front page of the document, that's what I think is a fair way to go with those boards and commissions. And a lot of them don't spend it fully, but that's okay. Some years are busy, some years aren't, it is what it is. And then we've had changes in leadership, which also, it takes a while to
Get that in the groove.
All right, that I swear was my last thing. Lorraine, do you want to add anything before I move on? Okay.
You're good?
We love it.
Question? All right. Yes. That's for help.
My number one question is the 6% for the school, so I'm really glad that. When I look at 550, it's like, that's a nut.
Well, and let me add one thing that Nerea and I are still grappling with, and it was funny, we've had been in conversation with the schools. One thing that is really hard for both us and the schools to get our heads around, they live in their school calendar year, which is like
Right.
so they're doing their 26-27 budget. We deal in levy year. So we talk about, so when she's going, aren't you mad that my budget's about, I'm like, well, right now your 26 levy is actually level with what you're proposing is level with last year because you had that big bump last year.
Yes.
And you got that state aid. But next year it's going to be weird because half the levy goes to one, you know, year of her budget, you know, so we're always, and she doesn't think in terms of calendars. And we have a hard time thinking in terms of, so part of that is that is not their number for the 26-27 year. That's their 26 levy number. That is not their budget number. And it's just really hard, we both were feeling good, at least that Denise was struggling with our budget as much as we were struggling with hers. So just, I don't want to mislead anybody. That could look very different next year, depending on what their budget, what kind of state aid she gets, just the same kind of situations that we faced this year. And that's why it's just very, very confusing. So that 4% was based on, let me prepare you for the worst. And I'm pleased to be able to say it looks like that's not going to happen. But I think they hope to present on Monday, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know for sure. Their budget.
Okay, I had a couple others. Normally I have a lot. I don't have as many. NPP funding is, aren't we gonna still be able to spend NPP money in this budget year?
It's not on here?
It looked to me like the NPP funding was,
Oh, because it'll just come in later, Matt.
okay, so I
signed off. It's coming in.
no, I know.
No, that's.
No, it's because of the issues with the slowness of the.
Right, we had to amend,
You amend all of those.
So
When I looked
NPP,
at this, it looked to me as if we were,
but remember, that
Done.
doesn't solve a budget.
it doesn't, and again,
In
I'm
and
not,
out.
but I wanted
That's
to
true.
make sure that I understood that there was money that was
Yes,
still gonna be.
we have a year 5.
Right. there's
They have
year
granted
five,
us the
but-
year 5. We had to do some amendments to the budget for year 4 before they could set us
Set us
loose
up.
on year 5.
Right.
So the mayor is right. She just signed off on the grant amendment for year 4. Because if you recall, we really didn't get our approvals till the middle of the year.
Over the year.
So they're giving us more time. So we're not in any bad shape with NPP, and we will absolutely have that. And we have the approved implementation plan
Yep.
and budget. We just aren't in stage yet.
Yep. And again, this is another scraping, as you said.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to do that scraping, but just wanted to take a look at the construction fees, because we know that there's gonna be a bump coming eventually. It felt to me that maybe the anticipated for 2026 for the UCA construction fees. Is that a conservative estimate? Is that a?
That's based on the actuals from the prior year. Maria, you want to explain how we
We
do
can't.
revenues?
We can't budget more than what we received the prior year.
Okay, but in
So-
terms of us thinking and planning, are we expecting that that might be an area where we might have more, we might not have more, but we're statutorily required to budget what we got last year?
Yeah, can't go
Okay.
over what we
We
got. last
can't
year.
So-
say, we know this is coming, so we
So
expect
if like this year we received 400,000,
Right.
next year we can budget up to
budget up to
400,000.
400,000.
But Scott may
But
say,
none of
don't
us.
do it
Don't-
because there's
Right.
nothing in the pipeline.
Right.
And you're like, you're gonna regret it.
Okay,
But, and that's another thing where, you know, it's frustrating, I know, because we may know things that the state doesn't know,
okay.
but they want us to be safe.
And
And so I think that's a protection that they build into this process.
good, it makes sense. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure I understood it. There was something I saw, public-private revenue offset in one of the budget lines.
That's grants,
That's
right?
right.
Is that,
Public-private revenues offset by,
$1,300,000.
which one?
it
What
was.
page are you on?
um,
Yeah, those are grants. Section F,
Yeah, the public, yeah.
those
okay,
are grants.
Those are grants, okay.
That's state speak for
That's why we're
grants.
600 grand.
What is it? The full thing is public and private revenue offset by expenditures. So it's
Okay.
basically, all of these line items here have a
Right.
corollary in appropriations. So, and unfortunately, with the exception really of some of our CDBG, most of these grants don't just support my time, Jake's time, they don't just, they're for actual projects that have expenses.
No, that makes sense, because we're about 600,000 down in grants, and that's. where-
There you go. That's pretty much where, but some of these, like you pointed out, will come in. It's just we haven't got, until we get official word, we cannot anticipate.
Fair enough. And then my last one, why is Edison screwing us with animal control? Like,
That
I was hoping someone would-
last year.
it's a good
We
question.
had that whole
We did have
discussion
this
this week.
So I was wondering if anybody was gonna catch it. So they're not.
We had it as a test to see if
And you know,
anybody was going.
I'm probably guilty of being too nice, but let me tell you, I thought about that and what we discovered this last year, because the number that, the actual number, hold on, let me just pull it out of the more detailed sheet, so I have it in front of me. Animal control. So our contract amount in 2025 was 25,137.36. They held us flat last year.
Mhm.
So that was nice. But they started implementing their own contract. So in prior years, we never got billed for when they had to come into town after hours. Per our contract, that was always something that they charged, they could have charged us for. Vet fees. They could have charged us, they didn't. I think we all know they were having some fund operational issues, which
Yes.
if they were doing that with us, was that going on in other areas? I don't know.
Aaron helped them.
Maybe you straighten them out.
after, not in the beginning.
So I think they tighten up their billing. So what we've done, because we had a shortage last year because we were budgeting based on our prior experience.
Right.
And believe you me, we scrounged those contract documents, and Maria and Scott were like looking to make sure they didn't make any mistakes. And we found the language in the contract. It was in the old contract. They just never invoked it. So we're now budgeting a cushion, assuming we also did tighten up some procedures with the police department, because they will call dispatch, and if it was after hours, they were just like immediately calling animal control in Edison. And so now I think an officer verifies first. And so we're trying, if they can. So I think that was in the first part of this year where we realized that was going on, and we tried to stave that off. So we'll see how it goes this year. We still might not have budgeted exactly the right amount, because it's hard to know. It depends on how many cats and dogs they get. You know what I mean? And so
Just
that,
closely- get more closely.
so part of me is like, yeah, they're screwing us, but then part of me is like, good, they're trying to right their operation. We need a functioning animal control. It's still, I think, for what we get, a fair amount of, I don't know that I could run it for $37,000.
Right.
You know?
And then the last one I had was the idea of us getting away from the end of year tax sale is really, really appealing to everybody.
Yes.
Right. And when you're thinking about it in terms of how long it's going to take us to get there, is that a 7, 8, 5?
Well, if we could have done $100,000, it would have been 4.
Yeah.
3 years.
3 or 4 years. So 25,000, you can run that
You got a slow train going.
But we might have, we may in the next, hopefully, will we have some better construction revenues? Maybe we'll
We're
have
hoping so.
in the next 3 years, and then
Yes.
maybe those are the years where we go, let's take a little bigger bite into that number.
Yep.
And so I'm glad we're all still on the same page, or at least you and I, at least in Maria, we all really would like it. We think, and what it be, it just takes some of the pressure off both our department, but then on the public, but I can't say like, so let's go up to 6% on the municipal portion. But,
No, I understand. I just wanted to put it out there that I think it's
oh,
as much as.
one thing I wanted to mention, Maria, with this budget, we're under all the levy cap. We don't need to go into our bank for anything.
Right,
Like,
yeah, that
we're
was important,
underneath.
yeah.
We were trying to also, we really don't want to touch that unless we really are up against it. So, so she did all those preliminary calculations based on this budget, and we're under on that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Jason?
I just have one question. So there's been a lot of reports about health insurance costs for state and local government skyrocketing, and I kind of expected to see that as sort of like one of the top line items here. So I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about where exactly we're at.
So in some ways, we've taken some steps that I think has insulated us a little bit from this. First thing that we did, and I think it's now 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
What we did was we changed what our base plan that we offer we negotiated that through with the unions. But basically there was let's just call it, there's A, B, C, D plans. So our base plan was like B, and then we moved it to C, which saved both us and employees that wanted to save money, you can still buy up to B or A, but you have to pay that full differential. So one thing that we did that started to help arrest those costs. The second thing we did was we switched to the Central Jersey HIF. Last year we didn't have, this year, while we did have a 17% increase, we had enough cushion in our budget. And we've also, I was trying to figure out, why do I have so much cushion in this budget? Because I actually did a report of all the employees in the plan. So because I said, these are all our existing employees, they've all had to opt into coverage by a certain date. Many have decided to leave ours and go in with their spouses, with other, they've made other arrangements. Or they've lowered even further to the D plan, which sounds like it's a bad plan. It really isn't, but it's a higher deductible plan. So you really have to stay in network. And so it only works for certain families. So, but this combination of things has helped us. So the number here still has some cushion. We have sliced away at that cushion to help this budget. I won't lie to you, like I would have probably come in with a bigger number if my numbers had looked better from the start. But I feel like it's okay. But next year, that number will go up more. I would be willing to.
Yes.
Unless there's a miracle at the Central Jersey
Just
We
for-
can pray.
Are retiree benefits, health benefits, do they do the same switching?
We don't pay for this.
Those are all.
The borough
state-
does not have, we offer there are Highland Park retirees that get our benefits
Yeah.
through our HIF, but they pay the full amount.
They pay 100%.
We are one of the towns that since a long time
Mhm.
has not offered benefits on retirement, which works against me hugely during our contract negotiations, I will tell you. Because they throw that in my face. I'm like, you started here and you didn't have benefits, so I don't hear it. But I have to relive that every year. But we don't, so that isn't a factor for us. It is certainly a factor for the retirees,
Yes.
but they can also shop around. So they could, if they don't like our number, they could go to the private marketplace and see if they can do better.
I ran into a retiree the other day. She was talking.
I know
about-
which one you're talking
Uh-huh.
about.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, just,
Yeah. But that's better than
So
20,
did I.
that's 17%, but it was 26 if we were in the
Yes.
state health benefit
Yes.
plan.
yeah.
So, it's all relative.
We
And
did
it's
a lot
also
of work
about,
on that.
and one last point, Jason, one thing we're gonna do this year, which I just didn't have the bandwidth to do in the middle of a year changeover while we were in open enrollment. Now that we're in a HIF, we can design a plan that, let's say, I said A, B, C, D. We could invent a plan called E, working with the HIF, that covers most people's needs, but could potentially save us money. Like if there's medications, GLP-1s are the ones that are in the
Yes.
headlines. So let's say nobody in the borough used and nobody cared. We could say, look, we're gonna just make the employee share of GLP-1s bigger. And I'm not saying I wanna do that, but that's on the chopping block. You read that in a lot of towns, that's what they're looking at, because that is a huge, for some towns, depending on what plans they offer, a huge number.
For most towns.
So there's things you can do, especially on prescriptions,
Mhm.
but it is very esoteric. And a lot of the stuff is also, I think, designed to confuse the consumer so that you can't figure out how to advocate for yourself. But that's just me editorializing. But I am gonna look with the help of the HIF management, if they see in our utilization an opportunity to save money that doesn't negatively impact the lion's share of residents, of employees. And we'll decide if we want to do that. And then I would have to negotiate that through. So, but getting that base plan change, I think it has over time really stabilized, because that that just reduced the premium amounts that we had to pay for every, because a lot of people were buying up to the base, we're just in the base plan, because why wouldn't you get the one that the borough pays the full amount for? So, and just so you know, everybody, and you know this because you work for the state, but the employees pay a share of their premium based on their salary. So it's not like they don't feel these increases every time, they come through, because they do. It's a real problem. So we have a vested interest together to figure out a way to save some money. And a lot of them have moved to the Omnia lower plan and it saves them money, but it also saves the borough money because
Yes.
that's a less expensive plan.
Mhm.
So anyway, I triple checked those numbers because I was surprised that it
That was
wasn't
one
a
of our
bigger-
discussions this
a
week,
bigger
those
hit.
numbers.
And Maria double checked me on that too. And I even put a fudge factor in there just to be on the safe side because I was concerned.
Mhm.
But things have stabilized a little bit.
Councilmember George.
Just very, very briefly, one of the questions I have with regard to police department, I think this wasn't last year, the last year for the cops grant. I noticed that the
No, it's
375.
weird the way it works. So
I know that, but it's zeroed out, which why.
it's
maybe
not
an
zeroed out.
explanation.
So
It's weird.
the way we're handling that, Naraya and I went back and forth on this, like, how do we do it? Because the cop grant's weird. It's a 5-year grant.
Right.
With the idea that you're hiring 3 officers and they don't all come on board at the same time. And you know, some are in the academy, blah, blah, blah. So basically, we got, what was it, 375,000 to offset the hiring of these over 5 years. So it's temporarily really confusing. What I didn't want to do, and I'm sorry, it went broke on a page, I'm gonna fix that for next draft. But what we decided to do is take out, just say it's 75 a year, even though it's not exactly that. This year it'll probably be a little bit more because we're finally up to the 3 officers have been
Right.
hired. But just so that we don't, again, say I bring that down, then in 2 years, I gotta whack it back up, you know?
Okay.
So this way, we're just gonna go 75, but that 75 will go away in probably 1 or 2 years when we fully expend that grant within that grant period. So it's kind of hard to explain, but that's, because I debated like, and that's
One
where
of
you
different
can see my
times.
revisions in the detail sheet. That was the police first attempt at trying to figure out what to do. And then I corrected it based on Naraya's recommendation. I just said, why don't we take off 75 a year
Mhm.
off the
Okay.
top, and then we'll take the hit on the year that it ends.
I know that somewhere along the line.
But we'll
we
have a
did-
little
we
surplus,
weren't there yet.
you know,
So,
on the
right.
years where we're doing a
No,
little
not
better.
yet.
The only other thing to point out, one of the more important things, at least from public safety, is the additional firemen. It doesn't quite save itself in overtime, but it really does knock off a lot of overtime. And the other thing is, we have complete crews. We're starting to give the response time, the response calls every month, and we're up to a call and a half a day now. So, and we're going out with a 2-person crew on our full-time people. So the program is to add 2 of our full-timers and one, which would be our full-time police officer, our firemen, on the 24 tours. But we're not, just so you understand, we're not offsetting it by overtime completely, but there is a lot of scheduling, and the chief has been, and Chief Shammy have really been working on the scheduling, and they do have it ready to hit the ground as soon as we fund it. And just as a very broad overall, Chief Abrams is looking at the possibility that we see over the next 2 years or so how it might work in the police department to add, so that we can actually have a full-time traffic patrol. As opposed to now, we break down, we'll pull people off traffic to go answer a DV or go answer a deer got hit and needs to be removed from the yard, where they have to respond because of the possibility of a firearm. So, but down the road, and this is probably at least a year off, that also reduces overtime, which is much more significant in the police department. We're trying to look at that. But one of the reasons we're starting to report on calls is to get the public used to seeing what we're actually doing. I know especially with the fire department, this year we've been reporting and keeping track of it. We are in a 30-day month, we're at 47 calls a month. That's almost a call and a half a day. So that's pretty high. So that really is a good show. And just to add on to my old area, I know that Matt, and we've chatted about it a couple times. The public works in the motor pool trees. I have a tree that Terry and Mike know I complain about all the time. The big old maple at the corner. It really is dead, and you can see it if you come up from first. It's dead. Just as an example, all of the trees that were planted by the developers who built Highland Park in the 30s are maxed out. So they're all ready to go.
We're behind.
They're also.
That's what I was alluding to earlier.
They're also the major cause of the sidewalks. And the sidewalks that we did 10 years ago are all ready to go again. So we have to look at that in a way that is not only maintaining the green canopy, but also looking down the road at the cost of the repairs to the sidewalk. Some are going to have to do, the others will have to do in another program after we do the lead line program. But,
Residents are gonna be like, another one?
yeah, but actually, that is actually, if you sell it right, that's the best deal there is. No contractor finances you for 5 years with no interest. None in the world. And I was one for 10 years. I'll tell you, I would never do it. But that I think that the other part of that budget, I would actually even increase it if it was possible with the tree maintenance, because it is a significant problem when a tree hits your house.
Well, we're gonna ease it
We're trying to
upward.
avoid
This was a major jump, and then we'll kind of progressively keep an eye on it, and so that it keeps better
Yes.
pace.
That's all I have.
Just on that, I honestly, because I really don't have a whole lot to comment on here, but on that specifically, we have a stack is basically an operational support.
Yes.
So these numbers are really reflective of the need of the the contractor. Like you said, we have a whole crop of trees just aging out simultaneously, and as we get more aggressive on road reconstruction, we're going to see more removals and plantings. So that'll be good too. I mean, we raised the tree replacement fee a couple of years ago, partially to
Which is not
yeah.
having as many, which is good. You don't
Right.
want trees being removed, but we don't have these large lot clearances, which good.
Right.
But the flip side is, if that's the only thing funding your tree plantings, you're gonna run out.
But
And,
that-
and to your point, to both of your point, that Highland Park people are very emotional about their trees. And we have to create an educational campaign about if you have a tree that's X amount of years and it has pretty much come to its lifespan. If we're doing a road repavement, it's best to remove the tree. And so we can put in good roads that last for 10 years rather than put a tree, do something around the tree or cut the root of the tree, weakens the tree. Or if we don't even do that, we go around, and then when that 3 years from now, the tree erodes and takes up the entire sidewalk or damage people's homes, there needs to be an educational campaign that is not so emotional, where people are so much in love with their trees that they feel that they can't live without this tree, because it's going to create more and more problems. And as we look at collectively the budget of the town, it impacts us all.
And the corollary to that important point is the flip, because we're about to embark on our planting.
Yes.
And I've already gotten my first, I don't want one.
Right.
And one of the things that we have discussed, and I haven't even, if he's watching, I'm gonna call you. But, we've discussed as a group, at least Shade Tree and with Public Works,
Right.
is as much as I really hate saying, but you're gonna get one, we're not gonna be able to keep this tree line down
If
if
people
we,
keep saying that.
because for as many people who hug the tree, I have people who don't want. And it's a tension between the sidewalks, the sewer lines, and all the other overhead wires, and you name it. But, I think we're gonna have to, especially when we have a ripe site, hold our ground on that. So just since you brought it up, Mayor, I was just telling
No,
you.
it's a campaign
it's
that we
both sides.
have
It's
to
like,
do.
we
We
need-
have to
We need to
educate.
keep them safe,
Yes.
but we all,
Yes.
and remove when it's appropriate and or prune, but we also need to plant.
Yes.
I mean.
We will not
because
have the
it
tree line
takes
count that we love.
80 years to get a maple the
replenish.
size that you
And
have.
the third one on my front yard guard died again over the winter.
All right, what are you poisoning the yard with?
Motor oil.
All right, 3 strikes, you're out, you're planting your own trees.
Yeah, you know.
But anyway, so I appreciate that, Mayor, but I just thought I'd mention that because the planting, we just had our kickoff with the contractor.
I know. I was in that meeting. Okay, Councilmember Hirsch.
Oh, no, it's
You
just that was it, and I'm just happy that everyone embraces the policy of tree planting.
Yes.
We gotta we either gotta do a campaign, an educational campaign.
100%.
No,
Well,
it's-
Stack does, I'm sorry, Stack is they do have webinars sometimes, but you know, they're sometimes scantily attended. But it's, but yeah, we'll step it up, and that's the group, and that is,
Yeah.
they're motivated.
It seems like it's kind of like a lot of things. People want trees in other people's front yards.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of the time.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just had a comment, people are always talking about how much they love Highland Park and they want it to stay the way it is, but part of that is having tree line streets,
And with all
right?
the leaves and
So,
things
yeah.
that come with it. you
So
know?
like if all these older trees, like was one in front of my house, and thanks to Public Works for taking care of that huge branch that was about to fall on a car this morning, they came out very quickly, so it's really great. But
I'm glad to hear.
I have a very old
I
tree.
saw it come through report of concern.
Yeah, I have a very old tree in front of my house, and it's like dying branch by branch. And it's like, I think the 3rd time that DPW has had to come out.
Yeah, we'll have it
because of
evaluated.
Right, exactly. So my fear is like, okay, they're gonna evaluate it, that they're gonna knock it down, and then what's gonna happen? Because I want a tree in front of my house.
we're gonna do a replacement.
It's gonna do it.
Exactly, right. So like, I can't imagine like if all of these trees are dying and then we're not
And then
replacing
we
them,
just
it's
said,
not gonna
oh,
look
you
like
don't
Highland
want
Park
one,
Street
okay, and then
anymore.
they move out in 2 years.
No, it's gonna be
So
Yeah.
now we don't have a tree.
Yeah, it's gonna look like very like cement and urban and
I
high.
have a
and,
tree, I have a tree that holds my garage up. It actually grew into the garage.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of trees.
Oh.
Structural necessity.
Oh my
Structural.
goodness.
We see that on the street sometimes where the tree grew and then PSC&G leaves it and it's
Just-
holding up the wires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's doing good, as good as a pole.
Stephanie?
Yeah, so that idea with the health insurance, I would like to, if we can talk about that, maybe for next year, the additional plan.
Yeah, I have to talk with
Yeah.
but I'll
that's a
report
good
out. That's
idea.
something that's this is a good time to do that because they're not insanely busy with
Yeah.
open enrollment.
When
And
I-
she's looking at some other options, she's looking at some other things to get more education on the health insurance front.
Okay.
Yeah, especially like for when I got my first job, I had to pay one flat fee. I rather had in my 20s, you think you're invincible. So I rather pay, I would have definitely selected the cheaper plan. And then,
And by the way, the cheaper plan has full medical coverage. They limit your doctor.
yeah, you gotta
visits,
say,
you
yeah, you may
They
have to
might have more,
pay
if you go
when-
out of network, there's more
Mhm,
penalties,
mhm.
things like that. But if you're generally a healthy person that just goes to the
Yeah,
doctor
you're
once a year, if
single,
that,
whatever.
why would you pay for more?
Yes.
They call them
Yeah.
catastrophic plans, right? Like, you
Mhm.
know.
It's not even a
Yeah.
catastrophic plan. That's not even a fair way to characterize it, but it's just not,
Yeah.
it's got.
It doesn't
higher
have all
co-pays, it's
yeah,
got,
bells and whistles.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
all that.
But some people need specialists and things on a regular
Right,
basis, it doesn't work.
right, yeah. And then it went slightly down, our total assessed value, is that?
That is
From-
primarily some of those tax court
Settlement.
settlements.
Okay,
But
I
I'll
thought
tell you
so.
what, for my own benefit, I plugged in the old amount into the 2026, and it didn't move any of the tax rates a decimal. So
Wow.
it looks like a big number, but it's such a big number in it didn't change
Okay.
the percent increase, the average residential. It's de minimis as far as tax impact. Again, this is a good reason to get some added when the addeds are high, like when Highland Cliffs was put in and American Heritage and those, it helped. Those numbers went up for a couple of years as those properties came online. Sorry.
And then,
And assessed values are holding strong for residential, single family.
yeah, yeah. And then as far as I'm on public safety, I hear all the concerns and I'm for that. I still would like to see like continue like heavy outreach for volunteers still on there. Like, I don't know if we want to talk about like a sign up bonus one time or something like that, just to get some more volunteers.
The Chief Shawnee's been pushing it. We did get we got 2 volunteers this year,
Okay.
but it's a volunteer fireman's a little different than volunteer, somewhere else. They
It's a
have to pass
major
all the
commitment.
physical fitness tests.
And take
They
many
and the
classes.
training and all that.
You have to have a strong
We send
commitment.
them to school for free.
Mhm.
And if they need it, the challenge is also, it's availability. If we do a sign up bonus, everybody'd show up for a week and then we never, like.
Well, it would be,
Yeah, so there are some strategies like,
Yeah.
where you can do kind of per call incentives and things like that, how many, you get
And we had
X per
explored
call.
per call.
So,
before
yeah,
in the
some
past.
referrals, maybe we can
Yeah,
through your.
I don't know how many we have, but some towns will also do where the volunteers in one town also volunteer in the other towns because it builds their LoSAP credits, which is the
Right.
fund that we have that kind of replaces a pension
Mhm.
to some extent, so they can increase their LoSAP calls. I don't know if the chief has been looking at that, but we
We do have
picked
the
up a
LoSAP in
few-
place.
Yeah, we do have LoSAP, and we did get some volunteers. I think the 2 that we got are actually very active. I talked to some of them at the last training, which was the breathing equipment drill, the full turnout gear. It was brutal. I'm telling you, it's like 75 pounds with the masks and the breathing. And the breathers actually freak people out a little bit. But these people are able to handle it. But that's the problem, is those volunteers actually have to be able to do that. The actual firemen's work, which makes it tough to get them.
When I was on public safety a while ago, we used to get a lot of people that signed up. And then they just petered out, never made it.
Yeah.
But here it is that we're buying these turnout gears, which are not inexpensive. And we're buying them per individual, and it costs us a lot. I remember one year we had spent $5,000 in turnout gear, and had people say, this is not for me. But they have to have those equipment. So everything has to be weighed out. When we look at the overall cost, it has to be weighed out. And you have to have those people with that. I think if you had people who volunteer, as Phil said, in another town and then do this, then it
Right,
kind of
yeah.
balances out.
But still, that's why I was saying, still us try to
Yeah.
referral, whatever,
No, we'll be
existing firefighter. they
Definitely be
refer
pushing that.
someone. I don't know, that was just like my,
Okay.
and then, so with the tree, I look at the whole budget very differently than you guys. So I know our overall, like the tree management budget, right? It has decreased because of some of the projects that we had. So is it any like part of that, any grant funding, any phasing that we can do with that, like different phases?
What I can say,
It doesn't seem like,
I
I also
think-
had deferred, but I don't want you guys to kill me, so
I-
let me
well,
cross
you're
that
part of This
out.
group, so if I.
Let me cross that out, I forgot.
But we do get grants, and I thought of that.
Yeah.
But there's one that we got from DP, and actually Jake just did a bunch of research on other tree planting grants. It came up at our last operations meeting. So we're gonna look into it. The DP offers one. It's a real pain. I won't lie to you. The people who run it are great, but you have to have like 100% survival rate, which is hard, but you can replant. So it's not the end of the world, but they wait for 2 years. So we can't go back. We can close out a grant that we got 3 or 4 years ago at the end of this year, so that we can then be eligible, because they want to see that survival. So that's a very good, so probably every 3 or 4 years, we can go in for DEP stewardship grant funding to support plantings. I am not aware of a grant to do what the Rich Tree Service does, just to do routine maintenance and removals. I'd be happy to look into that, and Jake just did generate a big long list, because when we met with the contractor that's gonna be doing our planting, he was saying how some of the towns, there's a million different grants out there, but again, for the planting, because all the incentives are around climate change, environmental, stormwater, all these, the trees offer so much more, and property values too. They really do help control and lift property values. It's been shown. So there's all these reasons to do it. So that we are very aggressive about grants, and we did, with Stack's help, get a very good grant a few years back. I think it was 125,000, something like that, to support 2 years of planting. So those are 2 years where the borough didn't have to. I'm just suggesting we could ease into that budget a little more, but that is what I think the budget should be. That's what I presented.
Well, I mean,
Agreed.
yeah, a lot of places have, in-house arborists even, because it does require.
Oh,
We can't afford that.
yeah.
But we use a consultant for about 10,000 a year. That's not so bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
know.
And DPW
Yeah,
does
no,
do.
I wasn't
pruning.
suggesting.
No, but
I did earlier.
I didn't know something.
Yeah.
I would love that, but it's just like not feasible right now.
Can DB,
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
yeah, right,
DPW can do that.
someone with a,
Well, they have a course where you can train,
We
you
do
can train
the
up your
smaller
electricians.
ones, we do
okay,
But
ourselves.
no,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big butt.
yeah.
Okay, continue.
And then for the motor pool, right, so it's up 20,000. So what vehicles kind of like is? the
Every
7,000?
vehicle in the
Because-
borough goes through the motor pool budget.
Okay,
Any repair to any borough vehicle.
all right, because I
funding
know
for
we
that.
added, like last year, we added, like, it was a big amount. Like, we added some new vehicles, about maybe 2 to 3. And then, so right, we have the motor pool, and then we have the capital replacement schedule, right? So how does that?
Well, when we
And-
get new ones, we get rid of the bottom of the barrel ones, the ones that, and a lot of those, and so we have caught up a little, but we didn't do any new vehicles last year. So we'll probably suggest going in for, we got them last year, but the money came through we do the MCIA
Oh, yeah.
passenger
We
vehicles.
haven't received.
And I'm gonna suggest we do that again this
Yeah.
year, so that we kind of stay apace. We've got like code riding around 2 code vehicles that are 2012s. That's just, they're just waiting to like crap
But we
out.
did receive the community center, not
Still
that one
waiting.
too,
The
okay.
shuttle bus,
It's in
we
the
got
works.
a nice, we had to fund part of that, but we got a nice size grant to
Mhm.
support the shuttle bus,
But it's not
but
yet.
that's hopefully coming in the next
Okay,
4 months.
Please.
But
You're gonna kill me.
so the budget that you're looking at here is these are not to purchase vehicles. This is the maintenance of our vehicles.
yeah, I get
The
that.
existing fleet. If this number would be much worse if we hadn't been making those replacements all along.
Yeah, so that's why I was gonna say.
I can't tell you exactly how much. I have to base it on last year's experience to some extent. And we're gonna bring on some new vehicles hopefully next year. So this, it won't get.
Yeah, I thought, okay, since we bought on the new vehicles, I thought, hey,
We bought-
we just want a brand new car, right? What kind of, rather than an oil change?
Those we send, if they're under warranty, they go to they go.
Yeah.
warranty.
So that,
These are the ones that are the big bucks are the heavy duty trucks. It's
Right.
The fleet that you don't think about.
Right.
That we don't fund as much. Yes, but that was probably gonna be 2 garbage trucks, but we still have a bunch of pickups, a bunch of all these other things. You see these guys rolling around. They are not fancy new pickup trucks with
Right.
some
They're
exception.
patchwork.
So we do delay as long as we can.
and then,
we
So-
delay way
so
beyond that.
yeah, I know that. So then that's why we.
So I based that number, Stephanie, just to back on that motor pool number, I looked at our experience last year. We went over what we budgeted by that amount.
So for next
Is
year.
this about this?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Are you expecting that there might actually be increased maintenance because of all the snow that we had, or is the wear and tear that we did on the snow this year?
No, I don't know, although there might be some additional plows and front, I don't know. Mike did not mention that to me.
Okay.
Not yet.
But I'm sure it didn't help.
No, I mean, I just,
Yeah,
They had to make some repairs.
But they've already
Yeah.
done them now,
Okay.
you know,
Right.
like anything that got broken during the storm.
And we
I'm
didn't
sure
want
is
to be
already-
like that town Hawthorne. They couldn't even go out because everything was like
Yeah.
rotted out. It was terrible what they had
Mhm.
showed on the news, and I was like, OMG.
So for, I guess, for the motor pool, I guess for next year or so, could we see like the replacement schedule versus like their maintenance, expected maintenance savings?
How do you want me to present that? Because the new cars don't really show up here. Because those are under warranty unless they're, and if they're in an accident, insurance covers most of it. It's like a deductible. These are the older vehicles. I can give you the fleet inventory and then we'll take it from there. You'll see the age of our fleet, what we've got, and then the replacement schedule targets the oldest, gas guzzliest things, with the exception of the heavy vehicles, because those are more expensive and we usually hold on to them a little longer than I would recommend. But the passenger, like the police vehicles, the patrol cars, those kinds of things, they put a lot of miles on those. You know, even though we're a small town, they're running all day long, every day. When they get out of their warranty period, we hold on to them even longer than that. But eventually, I would love to get on a lease program or something like that for those, but that's advanced. You're not doing that.
And I
So
know
I'll
we've
try to
got
think about
some
ways to express that to you,
donations or something.
but a lot of this is just, we have old vehicles and that's what that, and a lot of that budget is a fire truck.
And you need to express that with the vehicles, we recycle them in other areas. We just don't get rid of them.
Yeah.
They're used
So
in
that old
so
cop
many
car
other,
might be, you know, you'll see some DPW guy. doing
driving
errands
around and
you
then,
know,
or
if we can.
code enforcement or, other areas get those vehicles.
Yeah,
once they've
the
gone through that
2012
cycle.
cars used to be, one of them was like Don Rish's vehicle.
Right.
You know, like literally, like for those of you who
They're
know
old.
who he is. Retired DPW superintendent. So just that, we don't, it's not frivolous. I would argue we should probably be more aggressive, but we're trying to stay within certain budget parameters because it's hard to compare, because we don't buy a vehicle and pay for it all at once. And we pay for it over time and then there's interest and other things. So it's hard for me to present to you the true cost, but I'll try. I'm happy to try. But I can at least show you our full vehicle list and you'll see there's much more vehicles than you probably realize. And the ones that we're replacing are, generally speaking, like the last of the Crown Vics or whatever from that were used for off-duty jobs, you know, that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you and I are probably only went
You
through
know what a
every
Crown
trouble.
Vic is?
It's a really funky pickup truck that
They're
Vincent
brutal.
Brad drive around in.
And then for the library, because we spoke about that, right? The 2%. Was there any one-time cost in that 2%? Like one-time need in that 2%? Or is that just like mostly salary and wages?
Well, there's the annual replace the roof fund.
Well, that's.
I'm sorry. Anybody who ignores the problems with the roof.
Yeah, but they're not budgeting for that.
That's not in the
That's our
budget. That's not in the budget. We give
Actually,
above.
no, because they were proposing a higher increase
Yes.
in order to provide more funding and also to bring their operational piece up to the operational piece of the grant we got from the Ida Kushner. Because that increases, you know, it went to police for police cars.
Right.
And it went to DPW for garbage trucks, but it went there for large items that the staff is going to be using or maintaining. And so, so a lot of it was that, but mainly it was to increase programs because we found out that, and I think that it started, the movement started probably 4 years ago on what's her name? The prior director, and then Mike, who's been doing a great job. It really significantly increased it, increased the services, but part of that also is increase in the cost of a lot of the software and the electronic programs
And
that the libraries
ebooks are
use now.
major.
Yeah, ebooks are major, and some of the other programs were either phased out or we got rid of on purpose.
Yes.
Because we found that it's actually like the stock market with the crazies sitting around on their computers at midnight. the books would come available, like, especially new nonfiction, but new fiction would come into this one particular service. And the day electronically starts at midnight, the people would be in there and then pushing the orders for them. And they would reserve all the books and they wouldn't be available generally. Got rid of those services and we're using them more of the services that have everything available all the time, increasing anime and manga for the kids.
Anime and
for
what?
youth. Anime and manga books online.
Not taking
Yeah. I don't know what that is, but I just know it wasn't that.
Manga.
Are the illustrated novels that are very detailed. So those are where a lot of the increases are. And actually within the 2%, they made an awful lot of good programming within the 2%. It's just, it's really amazing. A lot of the things they're doing with the volunteers and the board and the cooperation with the Arts Commission, actually, some of them do require a little bit of financing on the library end for staffing. So, and for cooperative programs through the New Jersey Library Association. I would have loved to have seen the 4%, but
I wouldn't.
It's not. It's not. Phil, you want the trees? You want we can't have it. No. And then I think me and Terry talked about, and like Councilman Hale mentioned that too, that the reoccurring like revenues underperforming and closing that gap, where hopefully we get some shovels in the ground, and this wouldn't be that hard.
I should be
and
on
I
that
would
price.
have that.
If I leave you with nothing else, like, I think
Yes,
that's
that's
you know,
the item.
yeah.
we're scraping here with some of these things. I'm not trying to minimize your points. I just think the real upside could be
Yes.
if we can get some of these projects and we can get some of this additional.
The goal, that's the goal, is to get these
non-levy
projects
revenue
going.
Yeah.
if I may, just a minor question. I'm thinking of that as council and administration. The Uniform Construction Code increased all their fees across the board. Did we do that yet?
I don't know.
I'm just,
So ironically, I was actually, as we were having this conversation, that's what I was reading for your recode, was looking at your codes. At the last ordinance that I see was from 2016.
I know Scott did a pass at looking at some of that, but I don't know if it was.
Yeah,
the
'cause
I thought we
construction.
did. I thought we did
I
too.
thought
like
so,
we did.
but I don't. not
Just
sure
going by
we
what
did.
E-code said, that doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
All right, we're gonna look at those.
All right.
I think we
Let's
just
let's
discussed.
review. Okay, E-codes.
And then,
Yeah,
sorry,
'cause
guys, I have to be.
if we
One
look
second,
at
Stephanie's still at it.
Oh, okay.
Update.
Picking up
Okay.
in the.
You know,
Still at it.
Is Stephanie still reviewing the budget because she's a banker?
No,
Takes this very
no,
seriously.
I talked to Terry, so I deleted some, and I didn't use
Thank you.
defer
You're welcome.
tree. I was gonna ask you guys to defer the tree.
No, we're not deferring the tree.
But yeah, that is true.
Mayor, for the code, I'm in the middle of a research project for a different, going through those
Mhm.
codes to see what is being charged for some of these things in other surrounding areas, to see what the norm is. There's some restrictions onto how you can raise those rates.
Mhm.
But once I get that information, I'll pass it along to
That would be
everybody. So
great.
then that
Thank
way,
you.
yeah.
I just made a note to
That was
myself
the thing
about
that
that.
Scott started doing, was looking at the neighboring towns. Remember, Matt, you've done
Yeah.
a preliminary
Right.
watch.
Mhm.
And then I was like, we got hung up because we wanted to add one thing, but then we needed Chris's help, and then it just fizzled.
Right,
So
so
we'll pick it back up.
we'll find those. We can go up, but it's, I mean, if we're out of whack, but it has to be relative to the cost that, and effectively has to cover our costs. So part of that is looking at what
Right.
Scott and Christian are doing, you know what I'm saying? So we're gonna look into that and make sure that you're in line,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that revenue is.
Yeah, because I knew that, but I kind of lost track of that point.
Yeah.
Where you can't just go, we want to make more money, and then, now they understand some years you'll cover and some years you'll be over. It just is the way. And so,
Yeah,
but
hypothetically, if we know we're performing X number of inspections a year, those inspections should cover the costs associated with doing inspections. So, yeah, so we'll look into that as well. Great.
Continue.
And then do we know our current collection rate for the reserve for the uncollected tax?
It was 99.89.
That's what an accelerated tax sale gets you.
That's
Okay, you want the other one?
Yes. 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 And then, okay.
That's the beauty of you.
Yeah, 'cause I was like, all right.
You're
And
like,
then-
whoa.
Okay, so this, okay, I printed my own. Is this, I don't know, under in the public works, vehicles and equipment on the.
Oh, I haven't even talked about capital yet. I was
okay.
trying to go through this.
Okay, okay.
This is probably the most pressing.
Okay, we'll go back to that one. Okay. I just thought it was.
I still haven't talked about
Okay.
utility, that, we haven't talked about. Main
Yeah,
Street,
utility.
yeah, affordable housing ordinance.
We got a ways to go.
No, okay, so the other budgets are, and the other stuff is Main Street. That's it.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
Matt?
the other budgets is the questions.
I just
Okay.
wanted to actually, honestly, this is like 1,000 years ago at this point, but I wanted to echo I wanted to echo support for your question of understanding long-term fleet needs. And I think that that's actually a really important discussion that we should be having. And then with UHAC, and I'm only mentioning this because I submitted a comment for this for work. I don't think have they been published yet? The new regs? I don't know if they've been.
Are you talking about?
What's
Did you say UHAC?
No, UCC.
Oh, UCC.
Yeah, I was like, what are you
Yeah.
talking
What?
about?
Is there
Uniform Housing Construction Code. I'm sorry. I apologize. I totally misheard. I think it's UHAC.
Okay.
All right.
But I don't know the answer to your question.
They have not been published yet.
Yeah.
I was like,
Okay.
oh, sure.
Councilmember Hale, you had a question?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, move on.
It's done.
Jason?
I guess I'm sort of raising my hand.
We'll put your
You don't
hand
have
down.
to.
You don't have to come up with one.
No, well, I guess I did kind of want to just I don't know if we're at the point where we're kind of wrapping this up, but I just wanted to say.
No, we
kind
got like 3 more budgets.
Well, no, I meant like this
The
portion
municipal.
on the municipal budgets to just say that, because I didn't mention this before, that I think this is a sound budget. I support the additional increases that we're making for fire safety, for the tree planting, obviously the required and not required police increases. So I just want to say that I support it. And then just to add on top of that, this will come as a shocker to you, Terry, but I fully support us doing whatever we can to move forward quickly, as expeditiously as possible, with getting some of this construction underway.
Yeah, I think we all can.
Yes.
We all want
I think it's worth
and-
emphasizing.
Like, and every time I get an
Yes.
email, I gotta put a big sticky
Yes.
note on my wall that says, if it's not about those things, is it, do you really need to do it?
Because I'm always on her about that.
Yeah.
And some of these
we have voted
some of
on
these
it.
changes that we're seeing and the increases that we're seeing and what we're asking, it's gonna play into that, because as these construction and economic development comes, what we're putting in place now is gonna help with those.
And even those, like I said,
Yeah.
even those projects that weren't like our favorite things in the world, that were our, Cleveland Avenue, which were more of the settlement projects, and Highland Cliffs, which I know took a lot of energy from the borough, just getting it. Even those projects helped our tax base. They really did. Mhm.
And we're doing it.
So can I move on to the?
No,
Sorry.
Councilmember
Oh,
Vargas.
sorry, it's okay.
Oh.
No, going back to the insurance cost,
Mhm.
the health insurance. Do we have, now that we have like that lower tier plan we were referring to, and possibly offer a lower one at some
Sometime in
point,
the future.
do we have like any incentives for employees to like any wellness campaigns or health campaigns, just like to stay on top of like their routine and screenings?
I
and healthy,
believe
just
the
'cause
HIB
that kind of-
offers
Yes,
them,
it
and
does.
we should be promoting them more. But
We
yes.
should, yeah, because that actually lowers costs for everybody.
Yep. And
involved,
our also
yeah.
employee assistance program, which is mental health benefits. Jackie and I are meeting with them, I think this week, to do a rollout. They're offering a lot of different wellness and also management.
Yeah.
So how can management support employees,
Right,
coaching.
yeah.
So that's a good point.
Like all
And
those screenings, like the
It's
earlier
one of
you
those
detect
things that's hard to
anything,
make time. It feels like it's hard to make time for, but it does pay off.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And there
maybe
are, there are
with
ones,
the-
like, I know people who have, they wanted to get the $200
Like that
incentive
mental
card
health
and they discovered
Oh, yeah.
Commissions.
a major
Something,
medical
right,
issue
right.
as a result of it.
That's folded
So
into
it can really help.
What?
That's folded into the Board of Health.
Yeah, the Board of Health,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
it's just,
Board.
it would just.
No,
be
but
nice to-
that's something our insurance fund that we're a member of offers, because Horizon
Right,
used
that's
to
what
offer
I
it.
know that
And
they,
so, but how good a job we do to promote
Like,
those, I think we
yeah.
could probably step that up.
I think so, yeah, just
Mhm.
encourage people to get screened for
Yeah,
everything and
and
those
we do
routines.
encourage when we have vaccines, we tell, go over.
Yeah.
When they have health screening at the community center, we
Amazing.
do send it
Great.
around to
There's a
employees,
lot,
like,
yeah.
you can go take a break and go do
Okay.
it. So we try, but, you know, Jackie and I are the HR department. And she also is payroll and also backs up in the tax office. So we do what we can, but that's easy stuff because
Right,
the package is there. We just have to promote
right, okay,
it. Mhm.
thanks, that's all.
And we don't have to pay for that. That's built into our
Yes.
insurance.
Any additional questions on this particular? Okay. Now we move on again.
So the
Karen.
utility budget is, I think, pretty straightforward. I just gave you the summary page because the line items there are pretty much the main line item. The big ticket items, and you'll hear this in my formal presentation, I didn't do the PowerPoint, but the big ticket items are purchasing water and the MCUA charges, and our also the amount we pay to run the system, you know, our contract operations. And fortunately, we've seen some improvement in MCUA charges this year. Basically, every year they estimate us based on our, kind of like we do our budget, they do theirs. They base our charges on what it looked like last year, and our numbers were down. They were down to a point where we didn't have any overage charge this year. And I like to think, although time will tell, because we did have precipitation, that's been the work we've done on the sewer lines through the lining projects, through you know, investigations onto illegal sump pump tap-ins to our sewer system. So that's a good trend. With the purchase of water, and I should mention this budget does not require a rate increase this year. However, we may come, and we'll run this through Finance and Public Works. We might decide it might make sense to look at one that might take effect next year so that we can have a more gentle increase, because this year we had a cushion in purchase of water due to some increases that we were anticipating for Middlesex water. It didn't happen in prior years. We will get an 11% one most likely at some point this year. This budget covers that increase. That was, remember, we intervened in that rate case. And whether or not it made a difference, we'll never know, but that number came down considerably. 11 was where it ended.
We're taking credit.
So this number, basically, we can support using some surplus that we've now got, we've been building some surplus that we can tap into for some capital projects, hopefully in the future. And our water and sewer rent performance was, at least we met our expectations last year. So we've collected 5.8, we anticipated 5.7. So we're anticipating a little more, 5.775. We want to be conservative because I've seen our numbers yo-yo. And so I don't want to just go, we're now in City Pretty, but a lot of this progress has been due to getting those meters in. Because now we we don't spend 3 weeks out of every quarter just punching in numbers on a handheld thing. Those guys are chasing down leaks, chasing down high water bills, trying to help the customers, be more responsible to the customer. So I'm really pleased, even though, you know, I can't say we have to drop our budget down. I think we have stabilized some things here, and I'm hoping this year will really, proof will be in the pudding if we see our purchase. And I just was told by Keith from the water company, they looked at our metered costs out of Middlesex, and we are down in terms of what we've bought from them. We still have to purchase the same amount because the state requires us to, but if we can keep that trend going down, we can petition the DEP to say, look, this number you're making us buy doesn't reflect current conditions. We've isolated leaks. taken care of some things. So that'll help us in the long run. So just so you're aware, so this budget is pretty straightforward. There's no major, like we need, oh, Mayday, major increase coming our way. We were able to cover the cost of that projected increase using the existing rate that we're charging. And the surplus, the comfortable surplus that we have. We don't want to go more than the 500. And just remember that even if we did play around with this, it's not like we're giving the money back to the customer. You know, it's not like the taxes, like we're collecting that for the usage. And so I think this is a pretty straightforward one. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I just want to say
Any
that
questions?
Middlesex water is, I mean, they're top notch. They really are. And it's very reassuring to know that Terry.
Anything else on utilities?
So again, this is the numbers. This does not depend on any kind of rate increase to cover the gap.
Alrighty.
And the last thing I wanted to just mention, this is the capital plan doesn't look like the sheet that I gave you, but it gives you a little more flavor. The one thing I wanted to point out that I meant to put I put asterisks, but I didn't put what does that asterisk mean, Terry? That means we have some state grant money to cover those costs. I'm still keeping it in the capital budget just in case we need to raise additional funds to make the full project come together. But we got a $250,000 capital grant from one of those legislative aid grants for various projects. So those are some of the projects that the main one being paving and ADA improvements at various borough properties being here, the community center, the North 6th parking lot's atrocious, if anybody's parked there recently, and sidewalks in those same areas. So that, even though it's $350,000, the full grant isn't going towards that, but we also have funds through our road improvements that we can put towards the sidewalk improvements over there. So that's one important just point. So the ones with the asterisk, I don't have final budget numbers from the vendors. So that's what me and Mike are working on right now. So that's that. And let me see. The other thing, it's harder for me to project into once you get to 2029 and beyond for the kind of buildings and ground stuff. I tried to anticipate some roofs. I'm not 100% sure. Some of them are luxury. All of these items, not luxury, but they're not bare necessity. All of these things you have to authorize separate, either through a contract to be awarded to a vendor or because this is a capital plan. It doesn't mean I have an ordinance and money to cover the costs of it. So this is a high level sketch of what I think our needs are going to be and based on inputs from the departments, but all subject to refinement, all subject to your approval and authorization down the line. For example, you guys authorized the garbage truck ordinance for, I forget what the total was, but last year, that was in our capital plan. So that made it possible for us to borrow that money or do it without having to do an amendment to our plan, which we can do. So if something comes up midstream, we can always amend. So this is my best estimate of things I know. Some of them are little items, some are big, like little budgetary but important are some fire system panel upgrades that we need to do. So you'll probably be hearing from me about that this year. The other thing I'd mentioned, public works vehicles and equipment. I'm trying to do better, Stephanie, to your point about having going to MCIA pretty much like every other year is kind of what I'm thinking, so that we're just replenishing our fleet on a more regular basis for the passenger vehicles. So that's all I had to say. It's a kind of a self-explanatory thing, but one kind of concerted thing is roadway, bike, and pedestrian improvements. That's roadways, but that's also, I want us to be much more cognizant of while we're doing those roadways, we're going with the complete streets approach, and we're going to be looking at what we always do ADA, but really what other things can we leverage?
Yep.
Only in the bike and pedestrian.
Matt's got his hand up there.
Third Avenue is, where is that, you gonna put that in the
That's a
capital?
good
The
point.
plaza?
I need to do that.
You gotta put Third Avenue in the
I
capital.
gotta miss it. I missed that. You're right. And part of my head is going,
I
it's,
thought I saw this.
No, it's not there.
I didn't see
it's-
it.
It's
Not
not, it's not. That's a good catch.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons I didn't was I was pending a conversation with the county.
Yes.
And one thing we'll be talking about is we're gonna hit up the county for 1.5 of it.
Mhm.
But I do think we're gonna have to borrow, we're gonna have to authorize the full amount. And then
Yes.
we'll permanently finance what we don't cover through grants.
Okay.
So thank you. That's the biggest change.
Catch.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
And so what I was saying, I think there's an error under the Public Works vehicle. And
There might have been a formula error in the one you got. Nerea
okay.
fixed a couple
Because I
things,
only
so.
see 300, I don't see the.
Is that one of the ones you fixed,
toters
Maria?
or the garbage recycle,
That might have been the,
you see?
that might have been the old times.
In
You're right, the formula's not working.
Right?
The math is
Okay.
Oh,
bad.
well, yeah, Matt's not.
The items are true, and that's an important, that's a,
That
that's
number
a,
should be much
Nerea,
bigger.
that's not, look,
No, I caught the one on the bottom.
yeah, we missed that one. That's what happens, because, thank you. That's a formula error, the items are accurate. The
Okay.
toters are an important point, and that's actually one of Matt's pride and joys, isn't just that we're getting toters, we're advocating for moving to one-arm
Yes,
pickup
they are.
of recycling this year. It'll be something, we need another garbage truck in addition to the one we're just ordered, but we do have that in that last ordinance. We have the funds to do it. So Mike's shopping around
Mhm.
and we got that price for toters. That would be for anybody who currently has one-armed pickup for garbage. We can go to one-armed pickup for recycling. It has some real advantages. It's budget neutral in that we would free up to, 4, I believe, Public Works employees
Yes.
twice a week, because those are 2 people that don't have to hang off the back of a garbage truck to take the recycling in, and they can go deploy on those other higher priority projects.
Remember last year when we were
Yeah,
gonna.
so that's why we did not put 2 new heads in Public Works, is because we believe we can accomplish that through going to one-arm pickup. We did explore the MCIA program. It's a great program, but it is very expensive. For us to move to that now is too expensive. My recommendation is we take it on ourselves, but we go to we use their model with the one-arm truck. So that's why toters are in here. I will fix the formulas and recirculate this document to you.
Stephanie?
No, that's all I have for that.
I was gonna note, the formula error seems to be that it's just counting the last 2 rows of the Public Works
Yeah,
and not including the first 2.
yeah, that's just the summation. I didn't, I think I added the toters afresh, and that's what happened. I love Excel when you're tired and rushing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
No, I'm good.
All right, so that's the capital picture.
Yes.
So we'll revise that. The
Mhm.
budget document itself has a far simpler version. It's gonna be, the headline is improvements to boroughs, buildings and grounds, a total number. That gives us more flexibility when we're to toggle. So just don't be surprised if you don't see this in your budget document, but the numbers will come out of
This is
this.
for a worksheet.
Yeah. And
That concludes that part.
woo,
That was a long one.
Yeah.
that was good. I
half of
appreciate the time.
pages
And
go
you
back.
caught some important things on this was the last thing I mean, this is what happens. This was my last thing and I was tired. So you guys caught some good ones.
Good.
Council liaison.
2020 Main Street budget.
I didn't remember to print that out for you guys.
I noticed.
apologize.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
We forgive you.
Oh.
Don't
I was focused on
Don't worry,
We
everyone.
forgive you.
I was focused on me, myself.
Okay, all right.
Want to go, Terry?
Yes,
Yes.
I mean, the Main Street budget is basically flat. It's a 2% increase in the bid. One of the things we've been trying to do is have modest increases every year as opposed to what happened in the past where we do nothing and then 10% increase all at once. So it's a small 2% increase. Some of the numbers in revenue and expense sizes have changed. If you look year to year from 25 to 26, they've just moved a little bit to represent some of the cost savings for the things like the 5K that are now over at the rec department, and the revenue sharing that's going on between selling sponsorships. So the totals aren't all significantly that different. It's just that sometimes the expenses are lower in Main Street because the borough has taken on doing over the 5K. So those expenses aren't charged, which helps Main Street. And we also think Rec is going to do a good job at that as well. One of the things that's in the budget is that Main Street's hoping to significantly increase the total amount of support sort of directly to businesses in the design area, things like more lighting, mini grants and advertising, things that go directly to help out specific businesses. There's an increase from last year in that category of about $40,000. I will say that the budget, much of that is from a hoped for grant that was put in the budget that is going to pay for banners and lighting. But they also are going to tap into some of the reserves that they don't have a huge reserve, but they're going to tap into some of the reserves to try and push money directly towards businesses and maybe a little bit away from some of the events. So the budget that was out there has a staff line and it just says 195 for staff, but that's Rebecca, and then there's 4 part-timers and a bookkeeper, just to know how that's divided up. But overall, it's a pretty much of a flat budget. It represents a little bit of a hopefully a move towards money directly to businesses and a money a little bit away from some of the focus on events that they've been doing, particularly the 5K. And that's sort of that's the overview. I understand Stephanie has about 4,000 questions. So.
Can I mention one thing before you jump in,
Yeah.
Stephanie? Just because you reminded me, it relates in my detailed sheets for our economic development budget. There was and we usually give also an additional, you'll notice there's an additional line in the Main Street budget for borough support. Some of that is through NPP because we reimburse them for watering on the Woodbridge Avenue portion of that, which it helps us, it helps them. And the other thing is we do issue funds out of the operating budget usually, and I think there was a slight increase in that request.
It went up
From
about,
35 to 40,
I think it went 50 to 55.
but
It was like
the difference is in the amount from here because it's not
Right.
coming out of NPP.
Right.
So I did put that in the proposal you saw, but that was one change. I just wanted to I meant to flag it on this, but percentage wise, it wasn't big enough to come up in terms of a major number.
Right.
But I just, in the context of the Main Street budget, that request was made. And so I just thought I'd mention. Norman?
I just have a question. You said you do have, you just didn't print it out.
It was,
It was in your email.
It was in the
You had it
was
in
in
the
the
email.
email.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of this conversation, is it possible to print it out so we can kind of look at it and
Sure.
come up with questions as we go along?
I have to step out and print it out.
Is that all right?
okay?
I
Mayor?
don't know, if we're having the conversation, like, I want to see the numbers. as
Okay,
opposed to-
it was in the.
No, I
Do you
do
have
have
it?
it.
Do you have it?
You can just run some copies.
Thank you.
If you
I
don't
didn't
mind.
realize you had it printed. That's great.
Thank you.
Can I ask my question? 'Cause I read it.
Sorry, I didn't have
that-
time, but I think we should
You
have. it in front of us.
included the revenue for 30,000, right? For that DCA label, whatever. So is
Right.
it's in your revenues and it's also in that business design support there, that same, in that total 95?
So essentially that revenue comes in from the DCA, hopefully, and goes out
And
directly.
if they don't get
And
it,
if
they don't
get
get
it,
it.
So, and that was what's the plan if they don't?
If they don't get it, they don't spend it. They don't have it to spend it. And so the increase that they would increase would only be the $10,000 that they're taking from the reserve to do that. So their plan is to take the DCA money, use that directly for specific business improvements like lighting and improving, things for that. If they don't get it, then the increase will be smaller, be at $10,000.
Or they have to move
They
things
have to move
around.
something else around.
And then they have some sponsors that they budget for at about 23,500 versus their actual is around 13,000.
So one of the goals in moving the 5K to the recreation, to having Kim do it, is to have more time for Main Street to focus on going out and getting sponsorships and less time on getting orange juice and supplies and putting out the cones and all of that. So the idea is that they're gonna be better able to go out and get sponsorships for this, to work those sponsorships. And so that's where they're anticipating
Okay.
an increase.
And then what is signups? What is this?
So it's the signups are for the various events. So like the vendors pay some signups, they pay sign-up fees. They pay for.
This is like registration
like
fees for
registration
various
fees.
things,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like registration.
but that doesn't include 5K
It's
signups.
separate from 5K.
Yep,
Okay,
'Cause
oh,
that-
so that's why those numbers, so they budget less, and they budget for 25 versus 37.
Right, yes.
So that's why,
That's
same
Because
split.
again,
Okay.
the biggest change is just the flip out of the mechanics of the 5K.
Okay, that's why that's,
Yeah.
no conservative, just. I thought they was expecting something. Yeah.
It's the biggest.
Yes.
it's not on here, it's 2025 actuals, but doesn't have the budget amount of Jason. I would have asked you to put that on if I posted that. I mean, the main thing, Norma, just to clear up, like, the decision point for the borough is the bid amount.
Right.
Because that's truthfully, currently under our
Right.
current structure, what we authorize is how much of a increase in that bid tax. But it, obviously you care about why.
Where it's
you know,
going,
where it's
yeah.
going.
Right,
So I'm not
exactly, like,
minimizing,
it's like-
but I also, I guess what I'm suggesting is, you don't want to get into like too much nickel, because, you know, we can recommend that, well, why are you putting?
Why are you doing this?
And so we could absolutely communicate that, but
But it's important. We decide how much the bid is, and it goes up.
yeah, we don't vote on this document. This was voted on by their board.
The board passes.
It's a weird. kind of-
No, he. It makes sense. Any additional questions on the Main Street budget? So that, actually, so now that money goes to rec? Because that was a big,
Well, the
Right,
registrations do, the sponsorships don't. So we've kind of worked out a
Okay.
deal that they can raise, like, if a business wants to support the 5K, we'll get their logo on the t-shirt. But we're collecting the runners' registrations there, and that offsets the cost of the race. And Kim has come up with some pretty creative ideas for how to cut some of the costs, so hopefully
Yeah.
it will break even. And then, and you know this because you're on our committee. And then, but the other, but we, to be fair to Main Street, we didn't want to say, and we're gonna take all the sponsorship revenue that you got used to. So they're
Yeah,
gonna,
that's
they are, and we've been going back and forth on emails, doing that. So what they raise is theirs to keep, and they just have to communicate that information to us for the t-shirt.
Right, okay, so that was settled, because I know last time I met with Kim, that was
Yeah,
still
we've worked that out.
perfect,
Mhm.
okay, good. Right, so that was my question in the
Gotcha.
budget, it's like,
So
where was the
it's
money
weird, and so
coming
she
and how-
probably, this is a kind of a feel out year a little bit, because,
Yeah.
and it may be a little rocky, because this has been confusing for both her and us to try to sort out who's doing what with respect to the sponsorship.
Right.
But I think for the purpose of the budget, I was glad to see they hadn't relied on the race revenues, because that we're gonna rely on to offset our costs.
Right, okay. All right,
Right,
that's
and ideally, they're gonna be able to, you know, eat bushes and there'll be a very busy t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Happy
that'd be
problem,
great.
happy problem.
Happy
Right,
problem.
yeah.
Not enough space in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
So that'd be great, everybody would benefit from that.
Yeah, 100%.
Put a tail on the t-shirt.
Cape.
A
Make it-
cape, a
Long
runner's
sleeve,
cape.
right? Long sleeve.
So Terry, I have a quick question. You said they have some money that they have not spent down as yet?
Me?
So
No.
in
Oh,
the
they
budget-
have
so
some-
they-
I'm
they-
sorry, not Terry.
So they have a small amount of reserves. That
I
they-
think it's like
It's
$25,000.
like $25,000 that they have, and over time, they've collected, and they just try and keep that as a cushion for something. And they think that this year they have enough of a stability that they can use 10,000 of that reserves towards the business development stuff. So they're gonna take 10,000 out of that reserve. It's just good nonprofit practice to set aside reserves as you go.
Yes, it's good business practice. My other question is the banners. You said that they were gonna try to get some community grants for the banners.
So there's a specific DCA grant that they believe they seem to be pretty much in line for. As you'll notice in the budget, it is written as hopefully, so they don't have.
I see that,
They don't have that yet, but they feel fairly confident that they will be in line for that.
Is there any other opportunities that we can, because the banners are very worn,
Yes.
that they're looking at, that there might be opportunities someplace else if this does not come through?
I think Rebecca spends a fair amount of time trying to search for as many grants as you can. But certainly I can convey that more grants are always better.
Well, we have the ones for Woodbridge, so we really want.
Yeah, so we would,
really want the one-
we want some conformity,
We do, but we've
Woodbridge
been
is
waiting
here.
because they're doing all that construction and we thought if Main Street was gonna do theirs, wouldn't it be nice if they all kind of went up?
Really
So
wonderful.
meanwhile, we get Woodbridge pretty then. We have a pretty
all
banners.
nice.
Yeah.
It's all nice all the way
Yeah.
through.
So,
Okay, that was my few questions. Anyone else?
I'm good, thank you.
All righty.
you guys are gonna be burnt out on affordable housing.
I know. Okay, affordable housing.
Does anybody have any questions for Nerea? Because I could cut her loose, because I don't think she needs to sit through the affordable housing unless she really wants.
No, we're
No.
done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to be honest, she really worked with me because I realized I have a conflict on the second meeting and the first meeting in April. And so she's working with me hard so that we can introduce next week for my schedule. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
making
Thank
that
you very much.
All right, good night,
Um,
everybody.
All righty.
happen.
Affordable
So let me
housing.
just, broad strokes, I gave you
Right.
Elaine, if you know Elaine, very Elaine, the comments in here, which I was actually reading, I was like, I can hear her saying them. So, but Elaine has been working with Christopher from Wyndham Coughlin Mancello, our attorneys, to help keep us compliant with the latest and greatest affordable housing regulations. As part of the fourth round, and Aaron will chime in if I get this wrong, but I'm gonna say it in my lay terms, they also established some new requirements that need to be reflected in everybody's affordable housing ordinances. We already have very solid, with the help of Elaine and the team at Clark Caton and everybody else that's worked with us in the past, in place. Many of towns do not have on the books yet what we do. So we are still in very good standing. That be that as it may, the new guidelines came out. Now, confusingly, literally yesterday, I get an egg notice, which is one of those things that comes from DCA that says, by the way, that model ordinance, it's just guidance. You don't have to follow it like, and like, so we've been very much following it, but we feel like but what they did, which they being Elaine primarily, was take our existing ordinance language and put it into this guideline for us. So we didn't take it like strike our old one and start. So what you see here was her attempt to kind of show us where we have a couple decisions to make, and that's what I want to focus on. And then where are the new provisions, just so we know, but there's really nothing we can do about them, like we got to do them. And then one thing that she flags on the front page is a lot of this is administrative, but there's one area that touches our land use ordinances, and that's the piece that's going to have to go to the planning board for review. So I'll flag that. But you have the tome here with the comments. I'm not going to talk about every comment. A lot of them are more inside baseball for trying to, like, if we change this, I got to change that. It's more just to keep track of things. But essentially, there's a lot of definitions. So skipping way ahead,
The page number.
I'm getting to you there. I'm just make sure. Page 14 is the first kind of elective we stumble into. And basically, there's a decision as to whether or not penthouses in the new developments, may or shall be exempted from some requirements. And our recommendation is just to go with may, because to take it case by case. Most of our projects are redevelopment and subject to very exhaustive negotiated redevelopment agreements. And I'd rather have a little more flexibility going into those agreements. And so that's my recommendation. We're not going to have spontaneous penthouse apartments popping up on Main Street. This second comment, again, she's suggesting if we didn't want to be as prescriptive, we could add this language that provided that there's at least one restricted option available for each market rate housing type. I'm comfortable with that. I know this is all very esoteric. I really wanted to start with my rant, because really it's about being inclusionary in our redevelopment, in our approach to affordable housing, which we are.
Yes.
We've been following this to the T, but look at all the regulations that have to go in order for us to basically say 15%, 20% in future developments. It's crazy, but that's the world we live in, and there are a lot of towns trying to squeak out of these things.
Yes.
So that's why we have regulations that look like this. So
I'm on the mayor's conference call and everybody's trying to squeak, and I'm like, no, we're good. And they're like, what? They can't believe it.
But this is, I think, kind of over-regulation because of bad
Everybody
action.
trying to-
But
yeah, exactly.
that's where
Bad
a lot of
actors.
regulation comes from.
You have municipalities who refuse to build any. for
Yes,
decades.
yes.
And so
So,
now
yes.
this.
A lot of this, so
Right.
I would
This is
say,
what happens.
so this, but this is all,
We have people
like,
on
my head
board.
exploded when we went through this whole thing. So I'm focusing on, so I guess, just wanted to get some feedback. Are you okay having a little flexibility built into that proviso about high-end units? Do we care?
Yes,
good.
for the flexibility.
Okay.
Yes, for
Yes,
flexibility.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. Skipping ahead to the next comment, because I'm telling you, all these are either already in place or mandatory.
Yeah.
It's just an Elaine comment, herself and me, but it was too hard for me to figure out which ones to keep, so I left them all.
A lot of these where we're
Told you I
gonna.
had you hacked up my mind.
There you go.
So,
Prior to issue of any building permit. I just wanted to flag this, just
What page?
file this on page 25 under rant.
Oh, you mean you hack on 24?
No, on page 25, this is new where she flagged in letter F. Prior to the issuing of any building permit for the construction rehab of restricted ownership units, the developer, owner, and the municipality shall record a preliminary instrument, meaning on the deed provided by the administrative agent. But then we have to do another one when it's done.
So we're
Give me a
redundancy.
B. Like what? But that we have no choice on.
Yikes.
I hope we do it right. I can't guarantee you.
We will
That
do
is
it
going
right.
to be really frustrating.
We will do it right. We'll do it right.
yeah,
28.
Yeah, like why?
because bad actors.
I guess, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt.
We're the good kids and the bad kids. We're paying for
So
the bad
page
kids.
30. Again, page 30, I am your municipal housing liaison. Pleased to meet you.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
ask
if you
that.
want to look at the
doing
trove
all
of
this?
responsibilities that I have, but the good news is, we have Clark Hayden Hintz that keeps me out of trouble. Our affordable housing planners, and we have the administrative agents, Clark, CGP and H, that keep me out of trouble. But these are all things the municipality via me are responsible for making sure all this comes together. And we will do that, but it's a lot.
So you're like the trust fund administration too?
Well, me and Maria, yeah, but I am your
Compliance
municipal
tracking
housing
and
liaison.
stuff. Oh,
And,
wow.
and so we do all I have to hit good job to the consultants on the forms that we submit to the state. There's a portal that we have to report in every year. The team does the data collection and entry. Elaine asks Maria for the financial reports. Right now, we don't have a lot of money because we just have a little money sitting there from a percent that we got off of Highland Cliffs. 70,000. That's our seed money for probably what's gonna have to be designing a affordable a rehab program to meet our rehab obligations. But this does not have anything to do with that specifically, but that's part of our plan. So that's just something to be aware. I just, again, file that under, give me a break. But anyway. Here we go. This was more of a question I had. On page 33, she's flagging, this was enforcement, although the ultimate responsibility for retaining controls on units and for compliance with the affirmative marketing requirements rests with the borough. She says that's from our current ordinance. So I want to clarify whether or not we can make that a little more flexible. Can I voice that responsibility on somebody else? I would like to know. So I'm going to find that out.
Yeah, we should.
But she was following our current language, but maybe we have some flexibility that I'm not aware of. So I'm going to ask that question. Let's see, my next flag is just, she's flagged a couple things that are new, but that's again, based on the regs. We're just following their lead here, but you'll see there's a lot of new stuff to stay on top of.
Yes. 36 is new.
So the big thing that I really want to talk to you about is on page 38.
Yeah.
Residential development fees. When we first, we currently have fees for commercial because the state was going to do it and they were going to take it. So we said, no, we're going to do that. We haven't collected any because it's for new commercial development. But conceivably through our redevelopment down the line, that would be a fee that might come in, or other new projects that come in on their own. The question at the time was, do we want to do for residential? I am not talking about for ones that there's affordable housing already included. So anything that is 15%, this would not apply to. But the question came up, and a good example of where a residential fee might have made some sense is the single family homes on Cleveland Avenue that went in. There was about 7 that went in. We could have collected a residential development fee that could go into our fund to support programs and projects. The limit here is, I believe, up to 1.5. We can say 1, we can say 1.5, we can say 0.5. But I am at the point where I think we have enough of a rehab obligation, and by rehab obligation, we have to make available funds to help upgrade certain properties in town. And we have enough need that it might make sense. There's not going to be it's not going to be a huge influx, but for these single family homes that we've seen pop up over the years, we could have been collecting a residential fee. There is a proviso in here that we can exempt owner occupied, and I am comfortable doing that. So if someone bought land and is going to build a house to live in, we could exempt the property in that kind of a situation. But if it's basically, if this is a developer doing a single family infill, do we want, it's primarily going to be single family because let's face it, most of what's in our town is either in a single family, or if they're adding a unit to an existing land lot, this would trigger a residential development fee. There's not going to be funding, money isn't going to be falling in from the sky. We don't get that many new houses, but do we want to think about that? I think it's low risk and we should consider doing it.
Can I ask some questions?
Yes.
So, if someone wants to build, let's say someone wanted to do the 7 houses again, or something like that, right? Those 7 houses is the closest thing we have to starter houses, or the closest thing we have to low end purchase things. And I feel like there's
they're not low.
They're not low end.
Those are like $700,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 1 point something now.
Originally, I think there were 4.5 or something, or something like that.
The first one.
There's a huge, it seems to me that there is a need for not McMansions, but starter homes, right? For starter homes. And I'd hate to see anything that we do, maybe I'm just slicing it too much, but is there any way that we can encourage not having a fee like this if you're building a starter home, if you're taking an existing lot and making but if.
But then we have to have deed controls or something, or we have to, how do we manage that? It's an interesting question. One thing I should have mentioned at the top of this part, because this is so new and there's so many questions, I want to use the opportunity to have the conversation. We need to adopt this ordinance sooner than later. We do not have to do the residential fee piece now. We could come back to it. What I would recommend, if we don't have a consensus and we have good questions like you just raised, what we might do, I do need to move the ordinance. Our attorneys advised us, the deadline's out there, we feel we're compliant, but with our existing ordinances, but we want to be tighten and button up everything because we have no challenges against us right now. But so if there's enough discussion on this, my suggestion is going to be, let's not do it now. There's nothing to say we can't amend to
Later.
add it in once we have a consensus. So these are good questions and we should keep going. But I should have mentioned that this is enough of a different thing that I don't have a problem doing that.
These are fairly narrow,
Yeah,
these fees.
yeah, it's not a huge amount. I'm not sure it would have a huge effect on, I think they charge what they think they can get away with, is what they do.
And it's geared toward the developers. I know like where I live, like there's a lot of homes that have just been in bad spaces for a long time. So what's happening is the developers are coming in, buying the homes, raising them, flipping them, and then selling them again. So this would allow you the opportunity of a developer were to do something like that, to charge them 1.5% or whatever as a fee, just because we're coming in and doing the inspections.
Or we have knockdowns.
Yeah.
And they're,
And we have seen those.
Yeah, so it's actually, I think, just closing a gap on some of the developers who were driving a lot of this in one direction anyways. My God, was some of the motivation, but it doesn't, like when I read this, it's not, I bought a house and I'm just trying to flip it and make it better like that. That fee isn't applicable to them. This is specifically toward developers.
Yeah. And that's why we can exempt a home that someone's building for themselves.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I'd have to look more into it, but yeah, the way I read this is that.
I missed the
But
question.
again,
What
to a
was it?
developer.
This would apply to a tear down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a proviso in here. Again, a lot of this, we have just some discretion. They've set the parameters for us of what how far we can push it. But like you could see if it's an affordable housing development where they're already doing their share through that, they're doing their share. This doesn't apply on top of that. But there was something in here I wanted to find that.
Actually, says specifically, development fees shall be imposed and collected when an existing structure undergoes a change of more contentious. Sorry. Is demolished or and replaced.
I'm over here raising my hand.
I know, I was getting you, I was getting you.
In fairness, I was reading.
I understand. In fairness, you did that 3 times.
That's true.
I just wanted to mention the concept of raising revenue is really important, I think, from a budget standpoint too. And so I do think that, if we had a better sense maybe of what this could conceivably generate, over time, and then maybe what some of the, carve-outs.
I could base it on
would need to be.
most last couple years of projects that would have if we had it in
The past
place.
7.
What did that look
That
like?
would,
That's a good
we
idea.
don't have anything for now.
And just to be clear, it's
Nothing in the hopper.
these funds can't just go into our
Right.
our
General
offset taxes.
coffers.
These are dedicated funds to
Yeah.
support our affordable housing initiatives in a very specific way. And the way they regulate those trust funds are very specific.
Yeah.
And if we don't spend them, like a lot of towns have sat on, I believe they'll start to yank it back from you.
Yeah.
Is that specific for rehab? Or that what we would use it for?
We can use it. Elaine confirmed we could use this money to support our rehab
That might
program.
be an area we need to.
And that's why I'm thinking, we're gonna probably have to incur some debt to do it, but if we can at least support the administration of that program through some fees, but I think that's a fair point. Let's look at, I don't think it's gonna be a huge number, and because again, we're very developed. So there's few of these, but if we look over time, we've been talking about accessory dwelling units.
Right.
Well, if we decided to permit those broadly,
That's true.
if you did add, that 1.5 would be assessed on that, unless it was an affordable or something like that, So there are, as we look at, would we allow more 2 families in certain zones? That's something we've talked about, where we have a lot of 2 families, but the underlying zoning is RA. Well, then if you're gonna convert into a 2 or gonna add to your property, these would be times where Yeah, well, unless you live in it, you would get that. So anyway,
Let me control the meeting.
Sorry, Mayor.
Councilmember Hirsch,
Oh, no, I'm done.
you're done?
That was it, yeah.
Councilmember,
Does, is it only single families? Does it include like townhomes
it would
and?
be any
New
new residential construction.
Okay.
I'm using single families because that's in Highland Park,
That's in
typically
our-
what we
our
see
rule.
outside of our redevelopment areas.
Okay.
Jason?
I was just gonna vote in favor of proceeding with the ordinance without this for now, because I think there's enough questions.
I'm
there's a couple
tired
things
too.
that I
So we
could-
can make
I'm with you on that.
Is it that obvious? I was gonna say,
Well, we
I
can
had
make
some other
amendments to
questions. I
this.
think we might
Yeah.
want to pull some data to take a closer look, especially as to formulate like what fee we might want and what. like-
I just wanted to use this to take a finger on the pulse. If you guys are like over my dead bodies or do it right now,
No.
you know, I'm with you on that. I don't think there's a burning emergency, but I do think there are some potential ones out there that we would want to think about, like that, you know, opportunities where, why wouldn't we want to collect that fee and put it toward our
Right.
initiatives? But let me, we'll circle back. I'll collect all your questions and we'll come back with a more solid proposal. So Aaron, I think we're gonna just not go there right now, and I'll let Elaine and Chris know.
Yeah, I have some questions I'm gonna follow up later on with Chris too, because some of the language here is,
Okay.
Wonky.
no, it just gives me more questions that,
Well, this,
that
I believe,
I, rather than.
by the way, this is probably from the DCA template.
It is.
Yeah,
and-
so
and-
that's, you know, the one that we now apparently don't have to follow.
Right.
And that's part of why, because I'm reading the language here and then their notice, and I'm like, well, is this your recommending language? Because it implies throughout it that the municipality has options within the language.
Right.
But then that would say to me that, do we then have the option to ignore the remaining parts of the language too? And that I don't know. So that's what I want to
It's
go back.
another
and
reason
see.
to just pull it.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
All
just before we.
But I would like to get those.
I agree. Wait. I agree with Jason, and I definitely agree with you about the fees. Councilmember George?
I think it should be introduced with the fees. The
Yes.
area of question that I have is in relation to the exemptions, because I think that one of the things that would tax or add the cost to would be ADUs. I'm not sure that ADUs are workable or will eventually come
depends on
around.
who's
But
doing
if
it.
somebody was going to put in an ADU, it would qualify as a redevelopment, and the ADU would get hit with a 1.5 or whatever it ends up to be. The one thing that I think is important is the 6% charge where there is a large development where they have gotten a density bonus. Because
That's in mandatory set asides. We haven't gotten to that yet.
well, the reason that that's important is it essential, because it is for developments that have no affordable housing. In the particular cases, we don't want any
But we don't
development
have
that
that
have,
guarantee on.
well.
Well, somebody could go in for a variance, and
Somebody
if
could
they
go in
got
for a
it, you
variance
know.
on it and say, well, I'm building 40 units somewhere else, so, I want to see if I can get the credit.
Okay.
But I'm in favor of it, in introducing it at 1%. Leave the 6% in the density bonus, but in 1%, I think a 1.5% regardless is too high.
Okay. But I do want to finish
But
there.
just
I want to
to
just.
finish
pull
up,
out this.
it is absolutely essential that we fund what we're going, not only rehabilitation, but our other obligations that are coming down the road. Simply because I'm very familiar with all of the challenges that are going on, because we're handling 15 or 20 of them in our office. So it's absolutely critical, and we need to introduce it with the fees.
Well, let me come back to that. So the last section I didn't flag starts on page 45, is the affordable housing mandatory set aside. We currently have that ordinance in place. They're recommending we repeal it and go with this form to be more consistent with, I guess, this model. But we have a lot of these provisos already.
Continue.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're passing your thing out. Sorry.
It was
You
mine.
moved on already. The one part that we need to look at is highlighted on page 46, where in letter F, it says this section is optional, but the question becomes, basically, if a development when you calculate that 15% comes to 1 point, using the example in the italics, 1.4 affordable units are required. What do you do about the 4.4? Do you round up to make it 2, which we have done in some of our redevelopment contexts? Or if that number is below 0.49 or less, you could also say pay that into a fractional payment into the fund. That is and Aaron, my question is, again, it says it's optional, so does that mean we can tweak it, or can we like say, because my preference is to round up, that said, and get the unit built. But there may be some times where, because of the nature of the specific project or the layouts of the units, trying to squeeze a affordable in might cause some hardship or some unforeseen. Like, what I can't tell from this is are they saying if it's 5.51, it must be a roundup, but if it's 0.49, you have discretion? This is not clear to me what the borough can or can't do. My suggestion is, like, I would like to have it be our discretion, not the developer's discretion. We either want you to build it or we'll allow you to do the fractional payoff, but I can't tell from this what the regulations say.
Yeah.
And I think we need some guidance from you guys.
Yeah, no, and I need to, that's more of the stuff I think.
And so, but here's the conundrum. We're talking about these fees. We're talking about this important provision. I've also been told by Christopher, introduce it next week. And do I really have to?
Let me follow, because so there was
He was kind of flipping out a little about getting it done.
Well, so there was a deadline in the order that it had to be introduced.
We didn't
by
meet
this.
it.
Yeah, but we also
But
sent
we
a
already
letter in
have
that
the
said,
ordinances in place.
and we sent a letter into the court that I was just reading earlier that said that our argument was in effect that between our resolution and the current ordinance that we are in complete compliance, and we've asked for that certification to do so. I don't know where that got to. Based on that letter, I was under the impression that it was not necessary to introduce it.
That is not what Senor Christopher told me on the phone.
Fair enough. So I will follow back up with him
because my concern, the reason I pushed it on a busy night like this was because I was told there's some urgency to get the ordinance done. But we're one of those towns that have been doing a good job.
Right.
So we submitted to the court what Aaron just said. We have a compliant plan adopted in full. We've got ordinances that effectuate said plan. The only difference is our ordinance didn't add the niggles that you just added into your regs.
Yeah.
Can we have a little more time to incorporate? Then they just send this thing about the model ordinance. So I gotta guarantee you, there are many towns that have not introduced this yet.
Well, and I'm sure between them saying this is.
So
the
I don't
ordinance,
want to
they'll
rush
pull
if we
back.
don't have to,
Right.
Aaron.
Yeah.
But if we do have to rush, I don't want to do the development fee if we can, just because that's something that's not urgent.
Right.
We could
Yeah.
amend it later, but this mandatory set aside is something I need to know if we have to include it or not.
Let me find out that answer and we'll, by tomorrow, we'll have a resolution.
Okay,
On that, because that one, to your point, is more pressing. And then the secondary questions that I have about what can come in and out of the ordinance, I'll have to resolve all that too, because that's like those fees, for example, if we can pull them out.
It's just
Then, yeah.
incredibly exasperating that they promulgated this thing and then they, at the 11th hour, literally after the deadline, frankly, said, oh, by the way, you really don't have to use it. You should use your best judgment.
Almost. Ironically, they gave us the model ordinance, let everyone scramble for a month to get them adopted, and then said it too, which
Yeah,
is.
it's kind of crazy. So what?
So did this come from? I'm
Wait,
sorry, I've been
wait,
raising-
wait,
wait,
wait, wait, wait, wait, wait,
Sorry.
I'm
finish.
done, I'm done.
You're done?
Yep.
You're done?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you. So did this came from DCA?
The model ordinance came out of DCA. Clark Hayden Hints was using that, adapting so this is a hybrid of our old language and the language that was recommended by DCA. Then we just got the notice saying, I think because towns were flipping out or who knows what.
They've been
And
flipping
then,
out.
oh, we just put it out as guidance and blah, blah, blah. But we wanted to make sure we had a fully compliant, we didn't want any issues. So we were using it as a starting point. But the good news is, like I said at the top, 82%, I'm making up percentages, of our ordinances that are into the books cover us to most
Yes,
of this
yes.
effect. Functionally, we are covered. We don't have all of this additional housing authority liaison language, has this, that, and the other. We're just trying to be consistent with what we thought the state
Can I
wanted.
just ask a follow-up? So who actually delivered this to us?
A
This was-
combination of Elaine Clisham from Clark King Kent and Kriska Zangaro from Rainier and Coughlin.
Okay.
It was a team effort, and then myself.
Okay.
I rely on them heavily because, as you can see, there's a lot of minutia in here that nobody could possibly.
Yeah, I'm
keep
just
straight.
wondering, because I'm not really familiar with like the widespread distribution of this specific ordinance.
Yeah, I can send you, I'll send you the egg notice.
This is
if you're curious.
significant, yeah, I mean,
mhm.
it's.
And I'll send you the egg notice that said, oh, by the way, here's that document, but we just put it out there.
I mean, but are they just propping it up as a model, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
But every town's desperate right now. We're under these court-ordered deadlines.
Mhm.
So to
Right.
think that we're not gonna just copy and paste it
Mhm.
is
Right.
absolutely insane. You know, that's what every town is gonna do. We didn't even do that. They took the time to side by side and integrate. So what you see here borrowed a lot of our existing language where we could, and then where we had to take on new stuff because it was in the new thing. A lot of those things didn't functionally change what we were doing, which is why we think we're in good standing with the court, but they haven't told us we are there.
Not yet.
To your point. So here's what I would like to suggest. Aaron's gonna get back to me on the
Mhm.
immediacy question, like from a legal exposure standpoint, should we go ahead and adopt the most minimal version of this that we can, just so that we're protected? We can always amend to add these non-mandatory components. Or can we just take a breath and just introduce it at the first meeting in April? That is my vast preference. We got the.
But Aaron will get back
But
to
Aaron's
us
gotta be
based
the
on
one to
that.
tell us,
Right.
because we don't want to have
Yeah, right.
exposure on
Right.
this.
Thank you.
So I will let everybody know
Soon as
hopefully
we
by
know,
Thursday,
Right,
because we'll have to know for the packet.
right.
So I'm gonna take residential fees out if we have to introduce on Tuesday.
Any additional questions? Alrighty, seeing there's
Thank you
none.
for all that. I know that was a lot to get through.
It was, but fun. Okay, now we're gonna get to 16 and 17-year-old voting in school board elections. This was brought up to us a while ago, and I told Mr. Malednik last when they showed up that I would do some due diligence and take a look at this and see, have a conversation with the Board of Elections and what have you. Well, this is where we are. It would cost the Borough of Highland Park to get these ballots printed. It would cost just about the same as doing a regular election to get these done. So there is a cost factor. I did speak with the Board of Election, and they don't cover our costs. This is all on us. What they recommended to us is that we wait until the state makes once the state adopts this, then it's covered under one blanket. It's one blanket cost. We don't put on anything additional because it would just be with regular elections. So I was trying my best to see how we could accommodate. So I went back and I took a look at the areas in yellow that I have here is what did it cost Newark to put this thing through? And what was how did this meet the requirements, and how many people actually turned out to vote? Well, in Newark, they had 1,800 students between the years of 16 and 17. Only 3.2% of those voted in the election. So at that time, it was said that the governor had spent $7 million on making this happen, and the math did not math. It was very minimal, the amount of persons that came out to vote. And as you can see, if you flip the page over, it talks about 71 voted in Tuesday election. So 71 students voted for the school board election. So with that said, I said, you know what, let me take a look and see what we could do to try to accommodate and to make sure these students are engaged in their civic exercises. So I had a conversation with the school and I said, you know, we would be looking at a very substantial cost the borough would be to make this happen because it would have to go through when the school board is voting and to create these ballots and special printouts and everything else that would go with this. And in having my conversation with the school, we came up with a plan such as that we could do once the school board is voting, I would talk to Mr. Millet and we would have a conversation with him because he does the Model UN and everything else like that to have a mock-up at the same time. So we would plan for a mock-up, which they could print the materials inside the school. It wouldn't cost us, the borough, the cost of printing and paying for the cost of the school board elections or anything with the county level. So we and the school could work something out. This would be very much on the school system to create a mock-up where students can go through the practice of exercising their votes.
It just wouldn't count.
It just wouldn't count.
I'm
sorry, yeah. The point is it wouldn't count.
Exercise.
A mock election.
It's a mock election and they would just be practicing their right to vote in a mock election to get them the experience of voting. However, if you notice on page 2 of my document that if a student is going to be is 17 now and before the general election in November, if you're going to turn 18, you can vote in the primary because you will be eligible by the general to vote. But for the 16-year-old who are not going to be 18 by that time it rolls around, it would give them an opportunity to participate in a mock election. Had a conversation with the school. They were very receptive to this because they are aware of the cost that it would cost us. And they would be willing for me to meet with the Model UN team and to create something like this to give the student an opportunity to vote in a mock election and see what that looked like. Another thing that was brought up is like, okay, we have a set of students now and say they want to say no water bottles, no 4-ounce water bottles in school this year, and then they're gone. Next group of students have a different idea. They want this back. So we have to look at the cost of putting something that they're going to put in place and next year it's going to be thrown out by the next group. So my idea was to look at how can we collaborate with the Model UN group in the school and with the school system to create a program that would give them the opportunity of voting in an election, maybe having, once we do the mock-up, they would feel what that feels like to be a part of voting in a general election, rather than us incurring costs to create these special ballots. Yes.
Great, that sounds cool. It might be helpful to explain exactly what those costs are. You're saying this is going to cost us whatever money as you're discussing it. I think that might be helpful. And I will put a little bit of a political sciencey hat on. Every time new franchise voters vote, the first time around they don't vote. Every time you give somebody, there's a whole host of evidence that the first several times that people go to vote when they are just getting to vote, the turnout is a lot less than you expected. It's not that they jump at the opportunity. They're not used to it. Most people don't pay attention to it. So I do understand 3.2%, 3.8% is not a lot. It's also not atypical for any time a new group internationally has gotten the right to vote. The first set of turnouts tend to be very, very low. So it's just a.
We should take a look at what your numbers are this year, because this was 2024.
So we shouldn't be deterred by that. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I do think that eventually we should try and do this. I think it makes sense if the state is moving in this direction. I think we can adopt it when the state adopts it. I really like your plan of going to and showing them our commitment to getting them in to vote. So I think that sounds like a good idea.
Okay, so you're saying that in addition to, I would like for us to start pushing the state to go back and revisit this so this can be, so the state would take on this, and then once it's done, then we don't have to incur the cost. It would be under one umbrella.
Be happy. I think we could do an ordinance to support that, to whatever we do to tell the state we want this.
And then and additional with the mock-up in the school. Okay.
Right.
I would agree with everything that Matt said. I could venture to guess that the increased cost would come from the fact that you'd probably need an entirely separate registration
Yes.
system. You would need an entirely separate like voting machine or ballot system because they can't just register as a normal voter and be able to just go in and vote on a regular machine, and because they are not eligible to vote for all candidates. So you would need an entirely separate voting system. And that's probably something, maybe a larger city like Newark has that kind of capacity.
That's
I
why it
think at
cost
our-
them the $7 million.
Right, and I think at our level, like, we just aren't gonna have the resources to do something like that.
Yeah, I share the same concerns as Jason and Matt. I also have reservations on how it would work. But as to the question about what about the students who want, who bring in, like no water bottles this year and then next year they want to change it. I don't know if that can happen because that's initiative and referendum or special referendum bills. You get your special questions on. There's a whole process for special questions, and I don't think it's going to happen for 16 and 17-year-olds. I don't see that happening. But I am concerned. I'm concerned with the costs of the special license to allow some. And no offense, it's only for 6 months. We're licensing it. I get it. The solution is to start teaching civics again for a change.
And that's why I live in civics.
But I see too. I see a lot of problems with the cost factor and the registration factor.
And when I met with the school, one of the things was like they understood the cost factor and the labor factor too. So they were saying, let's really get them engaged in seeing what this process looks like, and let's let them start something in the school system, and they would see how much is involved and how much their commitment is. No.
I share some of the same concerns. But I do have a question. I know when my kids were a lot younger, before high school, when they went to private school, they had like mock presidential elections, for example. But as part of that process, and I think that's a great idea because it's a good way of engaging them and getting them excited. So how do we envision that to be? Like, are the candidates going to be like involved in meeting with the students, like kind of making it more real, or are they just going to have like a sheet of paper too? I'm just trying to figure out how that would be.
I think. One second.
Yeah.
Like
I know what.
Yeah.
I want to meet with the school.
Right.
And then I think to make it real, you have to have the candidates participate in the process.
Okay.
So that's going to be how I frame the argument when I meet with the school and say, okay, here it is, that this is what they want to do, because they came here and they said with their teachers, so this is what they want to do. Right. So here it is that we're bringing it back to you to have the students participate in the process, help us design something where they can be civically engaged. Aaron?
I was actually going to piggyback on what the councilwoman said. I think we're kind of talking about a couple different things, but if we wanted to get the state to really consider it and to move forward with it, I actually think it'd be really interesting to take a school district and kind of say, okay, well, we had the Board of Ed candidates go out. They had to meet with the students. There, by the way, it kind of all matches back and forth. They're running to be on a board to run the school district. They should meet with the students. The students got a chance to ask them questions. We did elections within the school. These were the results. They were varied based on the results of the actual town or whatever, what candidate would have won had the students been involved or not. And then that's our resolution that we then say, which is that when we engage the students and when they were given an opportunity, they took forth, this was the questions that they asked. We found real commitment. They selected real candidates. By the way, the election results are very different when we found the people who were actually on the ground in the schools dealing with the ramifications of those decisions, got to meet the candidates and the candidates, how to alter their, and then that's our resolution to the state, which is when we did this locally, we found it was very good and that we think the state should take it as a more permanent.
I like that.
Yeah.
I raised my hand on that.
Let's just go around the table at this point.
Councilmember Hirsch.
I actually somewhat disagree, and I wanted to just I do have concerns about politicizing, politicization, especially during contested elections for Board of Ed. So I would like to see a little bit more about how that
Mhm.
is handled in the schools, because I think that, I mean, there's no campaigning, obviously, on school properties, right? Right?
This is, well, don't we go to school and ask them to sign them up to vote?
We can register to them to vote, but if they're speaking with candidates, and this is something that I think came up at the last work session that we did on this, is that if they're being spoken to as prospective voters by candidates on school grounds, I think I would want to have a better understanding of that.
I think what I should do, not to cut anyone off, is to meet with Mr. Malednik and the school, because they practice this often in the school, the Model UN team, because that's what they're the governing body, the political body, and have a conversation with him and say, how do you think this would thrash out? How should I structure this? How do we engage and how do we get people involved? Because if we were saying that they could vote, they're voting in the school board election, and that was their goal, is to come and vote in the school board election. So I think that I need to structure the conversation with him, have him give me some guidance of how this should work, and take bits and pieces of it and put it together. I think that would be the best route for me to go, is to have that conversation. First and foremost, I wanted us to circle back because this came up and I said I was going to do some research and get back. I did all of that. So now I had a conversation with the school. I had a conversation with you. I want to go circle back now to the school.
No.
Stephanie.
Putting on my finance hat, what about if we can do shared, just like we do early voting with another town? Like other towns.
Oh, you think Edison's gonna do it?
Yeah, they got, no. They got he might. Edison, if we get some nearby towns, I don't know. Shared.
I want to speak with, I'm not saying no, that's an idea that I'm taking all ideas at the table, but I want to circle back with the Model UN team, because this is what they do. And have a conversation with them and see how this could, and then bring this up, because I'm quite sure Edison Model UN or New Brunswick Model UN probably have some engagement as well, and see how we can come up with something and see if it's a go. Take everything and put it on the table.
Yeah, well, that's what the clerk, well, we know their machines can do it.
Yeah, but they got to get special print ups and everything else got to be done. Yeah, that's where the big cost comes in, because now we're talking about 1 or 2, 3 different towns clerk working this special election for the 16 and 17-year-olds.
I don't need to jump in, just on cost wise, they have to program each election machine over at the warehouse.
Yes.
And it's a very expensive process.
Yeah, well, we do that for early voting, because I will go to Piscataway, right? Everyone in the county can go. Right. So, and then
but you're talking about a separate write-up or a printout thing for this particular group of students to vote.
Right.
It's not like you have like the state has these people who are running, they already know that these people are going to be running, and you have your host of people who are running the election. We're doing something just for this one particular school district, just to see how that would work out. Yeah, I'm not saying no, I'm saying there's a lot more to be looked at. And I definitely want to go back to the school, have the conversation with the Model UN group who does this, because that's what they're there for, is civic engagement and to get students involved and have them think about running the world, and have a conversation with them and see what they can come up with. Bring it back to them. They brought it to us, bring it back to them and say, these are the factors that we look at. Here are the parameters. How do you think this will work? And I know when I spoke with the superintendent, she was very receptive.
What is the cost?
In Newark, it's cost them $7 million.
Just to do there's just the team part?
Yeah.
Maybe because they had different locations, polling locations.
Yeah.
They got $1 billion school budget too.
We ain't got that.
Well, that's why we need to ask our friends would you like to chime in?
I think we should go back to the school and say, hey, come up with a plan. Let's put something together, and that would be cost effective, and it wouldn't cost us clerk services or machine or time or programming. Let them come up with something within their systems.
Do you want a consensus from us to do that?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thumbs up.
They're not gonna want that fake.
They were open, they were open, they were open. It's a mock.
Okay.
Okay, you just want to spend some
No, no,
money.
no,
You the- you
I
the
don't
one
want to
person.
spend the
My
money.
son will get to
Well,
vote because
doing
he won't
nothing
be-
is the way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My son will not be, he misses just by a couple of weeks the deadline to be 18 at the next election. So this will be an election that maybe we can, participate.
Sure.
But no, I get you, yeah.
All right, so the consensus is that I'm gonna circle back with the school, have a conversation with them, spend some time, take a look at it and see where it all flushes out. Because when I spoke with the county board of election, they said we would have to print up these ballots. It had to go to Trenton and it has to be done very legally like any other regular election. So the state would get involved and all these other layers have to be involved. And I was like, wait a second, I didn't think it would have gone that. I thought it was just gonna be a mock thing. It was like, no, the best thing is to look at another opportunity. So the other opportunity was when we were having our meeting with the school, I said, what about this? And they said, maybe you should bring it back to the Mother UN and see if we can come up with something and we can work within that parameters without incurring that cost. All right, any other questions?
Public comment?
Good. Yeah, okay, Miss Stephanie, I know you're ready to go. She's like public comment.
I was looking at the
Okay,
agenda.
okay. And now it's time for public comment. Anybody in?
Well, there's someone named Michael who's been hanging in. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Public comment. 21 minutes, 3 minutes per speaker. Anyone on Zoom will be heard first. And
There's no hand up. Mayor.
no hand up. Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to close public participation?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember George.
Yes.
Councilmember Hale.
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch.
Yes.
Council President Kim Cho
Yeah.
Han. Councilmember Pistonik.
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas.
Yes.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no action was taken at this. Was just a work session. Thank you all.
I'm gonna stretch this.
And good night.
Night.
And see you next week.